than just the look of it. You need to think about utility. Utility is you have to have a clear goal. Are you delivering value? Is there a clear purpose for your applications? Marketing. Anytime somebody comes in contact with your brand, that needs to reiterate and be consistent with what you're trying to do from your platform. Performance. You guys are going to touch on this a little bit later, but this is a very big part of how people feel about your software. A lot of this boils down to data. If your site is responsive, quick, and you're getting information back quickly, it reinforces a good experience for the user. Accessibility. Accessibility deals with you have to make sure anyone can use your platform. A lot of us get caught up in, if you're a developer, you get caught up in, you can use it, the client can use the platform. But do you think about 14% of all people have disabilities of some sort? They can be slightly colorblind, they may be visually impaired. So if you're building your software to be to modern code standards, it's clean, you're not relying on color, you're able to bring everyone into the fold. Ergonomics, this is something that if you have a physical product or you're tying into using your software in a physical way of some sort, you have to think about how people are going to use your product every day. This is material, the shape or size of what you're using. And this changes based on where your users are at. Lastly, we have usability, which is thinking about how simple this is. It doesn't make sense when you put into it. Can grandmother use it? Or can nephew use it? Because we often get caught up in the people who are around using the platform that just makes sense. And human interaction is something. This is where people start to learn about software. People come into your platform, they start to expect certain things. These are called affordances. So save buttons, interactions that people kind of expect to happen. So as creative as you can get with your platform, you have to respect how people understand computers. And there's a lot that goes into this. So user experience design is crafting all of those things to create the desired experience. Your desired experience can be trust, confidence, fun. It could be fear or warning or safety. And these are things that you need to consider for what you're trying to do. So I'm going to give some good examples. If you guys recognize these companies, think about what you feel when you see them. What's this? Squarespace.
Glasses. I think she's doing the social media.
Okay.
And the Coders4Africa, so we can have it.
Okay, definitely. I'll give you.
So when you see these brands, they really identify what's important to them. They have a simple messaging, and when you see that, you have a feeling of what they're trying to deliver. They get clear action and value, and the language they use is not too technical. They spend extra time to think about the way to communicate with their users. It's a very human tone. It's very conversational. Here's why it matters to you. Are you software developers? Can you raise your hand if you develop programs? Do you work on a software platform? Okay, or you're some way invested in the success of the platform. It's everything. Yeah, that's why we're here. If you really think about the experience you're delivering, it's going to deliver increased productivity, increased sales, training, development, maintenance costs, all the stuff goes up. Your users feel comfortable, and they feel that they can trust your system. So there's a lot of value in really thinking about that. So a lot of times people think that user experience is just spending extra design time, but it's a lot more than that. You're investing in the quality of your product, and to do this, you really need the whole team. The map I showed earlier head, design, ergonomics, performance. And honestly, as a designer, yeah, I've been doing this for 8 years. I need the whole team's help to really make everything work. So it takes collaboration. At the beginning of a project, what we do is we bring the developer, the client, myself, and everyone together, and we collaborate on what's needed for the projects. And often you'll hear us argue about what's important, what we can deliver, and what we can't deliver. It's a good thing because when everyone gets their point of view out there, everyone feels like they've input. They do. Everyone has ownership. Everyone can understand each other's goals, and you learn a lot about what it takes to deliver a good product. So you're all here because, in some way or another, you're involved in software for Africa. There are a lot of considerations that you need to take. All those principles that we talked about. Design, development, marketing. They're all different in the U.S. as they are in Africa. We have different data performances. We have different devices. 11% of people are using smartphones. Of the people that even have smartphones. So you have very different uses of your software. So you have to be very cognizant of what you're trying to deliver. In utility, people have very different needs. Here, we don't think of money the same. There's a lot of more monetary transactions. I'm sure you're familiar with this. So the needs of what you have for the software is quite different. These guys will touch on the performance and some of the interaction stuff. So I'm sure you've all done projects, or if you're here, you've had projects in the past. And how often you finish your project and it's done, you kind of feel like, man, I wish I could have found that and improved that a little bit. You didn't have time, you didn't have money. And that's where, at the end of the day, maybe you didn't take the experience seriously. Here's tips for your next project. In the beginning, you got to bring everyone together, define your goals, and write them down. What do you want the users to feel when you use the product? Get everyone's input, clients' input, developers' input. You need to really understand how they think. It's not just the client. Your job is to encourage them to understand how they use their platform. And everyone's knowledge and experience is really valuable. And the biggest thing is user experience doesn't stop when you launch. And this, I think we've all been guilty of. You get a project out, and you don't follow up on the metrics a lot. Paul's going to talk about metrics a little bit. But when you find out what your goals are, you really need to track them and chase them. And when Dropbox came out, it wasn't that friendly. When most of these successful products that we know now, they weren't as useful when they launched. So you can keep improving and keep making your product what you want it to be. It doesn't need to be perfect. And just understand it. As long as you're iterating and improving your product, you can get it where you want it to be. And yeah, that's pretty much it. It's really like I can't tell you an experience for your product, for what it should be. It's really up to you. It's really up for you to decide what you want your product to be, bringing it from the table. This is the contracting software that I use almost every day. It's really colorful. I mean, their goal is to make it easy to do time input. But I really value their mantra is how any software should be. Software, if it's easy to use, your customers are going to be happy. At the end of the day, that's what you want. You want your customers to be happy, be comfortable, and they'll come back and they'll keep using the second better. Because the first time you don't, you slow down your user or make them feel uncomfortable, you might lose them. So it's just thinking about making them happy at times. Alright, so if you guys have any questions, I know there's a lot of considerations, but we're trying to deliver. But I have a couple tools that I use and one suggestions on enhancing your design process. There's different tools you can use in the beginning when you collaborate with the client, when you're moving on to the beginning stages of development, and then following up with the development team. Personally, I like to sketch out with with stakeholders on post-it notes and grid paper. It's the best physical way to see what you're doing. And then to do high-level sketching and prototyping, I use these platforms. There's about 100 of them at this resource here, so you kind of flip through and see what you might be comfortable using. These are basically buttons. It's a way for you to quickly visualize the information you're trying to say and share it with the clients. That's one resources on who's really leading user experience, different organizations. Extra resources and information. These are a lot of good ways. Really helped it. Yes. My experience working with developers. This is it. No, we're done. That's all I have. Yeah. Okay, I'll get back to it. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Another round, David. I'm going to introduce myself. I'm sorry. My name is Vienna Bagaya, and I'm your host. Just one last thing. I know you guys are going to have questions as we go. Just write them down after Coders4Africa presents, and Amadou presents as well. We'll have a short Q&A. Before we introduce the next speaker, I wanted to also say that we're setting up for a live live streaming, and we'll have it on the Coders4Africa Twitter page when it's up, and you guys can just retweet it, so people who may not make it today can watch it live. And it's very important that speakers speak directly to the mic, where everything's going to be fed into the recording there. So it would be great if you could speak louder and also speak closer to the mic, kind of like me. So next is Abu Kone.
Hey, everybody. My name is Abu Kone. I'm very titled. I'm going to I don't have like corporate titles. Yeah, like marketing and all that stuff. So I've worked over experience in web development. I work in different kind of industries, government, healthcare, advertising, and I've seen the worst in terms of front-end engineering. And right now, I'm currently using the best. And my goal with this presentation is to introduce you to the tools, the technologies, and the architecture that we use at Coders4Africa on design applications for our clients, as well as our internal applications. And also, to kind of give you like some tips on activity on how to create the type of application that we still have. So just to get back to the topic of the mercenary, why I said I use that analogy of the developer as a mercenary is that how many people are developers in the group? As usual. And how many people are non-technical? So I'll apologize in advance. A few parts of my talk I don't sound like just bear with me. I have to feel the nerd. But why is a developer mercenary nowadays? It's because this is a hot market. If you're a developer, you can tell by experience that you're going to get contacted by a lot of recruiters every day. Like lots of people want getting things from developers to try and basically hire you out of where you currently work. And mercenaries are still individual, and those skills are in high demand. And competition between businesses is intense. And businesses, in order to achieve their goals, need the skills to make it happen. And they don't care where they get the skills from. As long as you get them, the job gets done. So as a mercenary, you're going to be motivated by two things. You're going to be motivated by gain, which is monetary gain. You're going to get paid well. Or you're going to be motivated by cost because you love what you're doing. And the goal, as chief mercenary for Coders4Africa, is to get the developers that are primarily motivated by the cost and also get the gain because you get rewarded for what you do. So in terms of Coders4Africa, what type of mercenary skills we have? Development of web and mobile applications, and that's of course using HTML and CSS. I didn't put it as HTML5 because it's a buzzword everybody's using it. handle the HTML and CSS, and you got to know some type of server-side language to make that connection. So, how many people in here have had a need to get an app done, some type of software built for your business? So, one of the things that you're going to be interested in, this age of agile methodology, lean process to get fast turnaround, to get some type of MVP project done quick, so you can start iterating on it, as David said, and you're going to give some feedback on the MVP, and just keep it's a cycle. It's a process that keeps repeating. And at the end of the day, what you want to build is a stable application, an application that's going to scale well. And also, it has to be part. You can have an app in production that keeps breaking down every 5 minutes. That's bad user experience, and that makes a business reach that. So, knowing that, how to architect those type of solutions at Coders4Africa. I'm going to just go over some quick architectural concerns that you got to take, in the way that we approach solving these problems. And the first one that I is going to get deeper after me is the API. So once David already talked about the user experience process, once we went through that integration, we're going to have some type of UX experience, some type of markup that so when David delivers those workshop templates to me, the first thing that I'm going to look at is to go to my backend team and be like, what is going to be our API? And just to give you an advance, I'm going to cover first APIs, and then I'm going to cover single page applications and all these other things. But to get back to the topic of the APIs, because any application that is built nowadays has one thing that has to do. The application that we're doing right now is being data by some way to solve a problem. That's what happens. So the whole model used to be all you have all these big tools where you do some type of server-side rendering. Your business logic is mixed in with data, and this one enclosed world that nobody else but you has access to. But if you want to make your application grow outside of the business and for it to become a platform, you have to be able to at one point expose your business logic. Facebook would have been able to grow if you didn't allow external applications to identify users through its API. Twitter, same thing. We have the phenomenon of OAuth that allows you to identify yourself with the application using other type of application. And that's possible because you're using an API. And the good thing that it does is right now is that as a business you build an application, the first thing that you want to think about is that, of course, you need a web application, but you also want to need a mobile application. It's not one of us nowadays. And an API is also a good way to monetize your application and also to scale it into becoming more than a business, like I said, one platform. So how do we make that happen? So once you got your API, you created the model for your business, the data is extracted, and you expose it to an API. One of the best returns that you want to get to be able to access that information and present it to the user and allow them to interact with it is to build the SPA, to a single page application. And that's not a new concept. Can anybody tell me what was the first major SPA application out there, just for the kids that might know? Google Maps. Close. Google Maps that you use every day is the first major type of single page application that was built out there. Because if you notice when you're using Google, you never reload the page, you never do something and then wait for the whole page to load again. Everything happens within that same experience. So that's the concept of a single page application. They don't take the users out from different pages. Don't take the user, don't have the user waiting for load time because, of course, it's bad for the user experience. Have them stay within one page and make everything happen from there. The next, that's more into the technical aspect of building a single page application, is that you're not talking about building a website for the mom and a box, candy store. The applications are going to be used by customers. It's going to be big, And we're talking about a lot of JavaScript files. We want a way to organize your code so that the teams working on the code are going to be able to make sense of it and be able to bring in the individuals without getting lost in the code. So we don't have to think about some type of dependency management for all those files and also for your code. You have to do organize your code in modules that are specialized in a certain area of the functionality that you want to explore. So you're going to have to use tools to facilitate that process. Next thing is to get back to the process of to the topic of quality that I was talking about earlier. And that's a great reality. As the things out the back, things that we get excited about building stuff is new, whatever technology that you're using. And it's fun, and you build it and you think that works until it doesn't. And if you have it in production, it's quite embarrassing. So one of the big movement that's going on right now is to make sure that you have some type of automated testing going on with your application. So we're working towards test-driven development, which means that before you build a feature, you already create a test for it, and meaning that you already know what's going to fail before you build it, and then you make it work, and then you know that you never fail at that point. So it's a whole strategy of being proactive instead of being reactive, and that brings us to the topic of continuous integration. Once you have the application, and the continuous integration is that once you have the application in production, how do you make sure that it stays healthy and running without beautiful? And if you don't have any type of testing code base in place, every time that you do a live release, it's a gamble. Because by fixing one bug, most of the time, most of you knows that by fixing one bug, you probably create another without being aware of anything. Without having that type of sanity check, you won't be able to maintain that level of quality in your code. So this has to be part of the process. It's part of our process at Coders4Africa, both from the front end point of view and from the back. So how do we deliver that? Like all those concepts that I just talked about, we write everything in JavaScript. And this brings in the concept of JavaScript everywhere. If you remember like 10 years ago when we were talking about JavaScript, people would have stay away from it because it was just the technology that people knew to be just used to make something flash on the screen and you're annoying to users and stuff and give you pop-ups on like junk websites. But the technology has evolved into like, I mean, I might be biased when I say that, like one of the most powerful like web and mobile development tools out there. So the particular technology I use at Coders4Africa is the mean stack. So I say we get mean. And mean stands for MongoDB, ExpressJS, AngularJS, and Node.js. And why we pick the mean stack is because the underlying technology is designed for performance in terms of speed, especially in terms of speed, in terms of I won't get into all the technical terms, but compared to like something like PHP, once you scale, and we talk about scalability here, frameworks. And the good thing about having everything written in JavaScript is that it reduces the barrier to entry for new developers. And for existing developers, it brings kind of a language of cohesion. Everybody's using the same language, everybody's using the same tools. And what it does is, at the end of the day, is increase the productivity of the user of your developers. And the data, I talked about the data earlier, is that by using MongoDB, the data that you see in your database is basically the same data that's available on the front end. So debugging issues and being able to see what's going on with your data is instantly available to you. And it also goes to you. And that's all what is that because this framework with those 4 principles in mind. David said one thing that's important when you do this process, even when you have an app that's delivered, is to distinguish. And that's one of the things that we use good at, is to make it very easy and quick to prototypes. So you're not going to spend another 6 months just to have something that's going to fail. You're going to be able to get in 2-3 weeks and be able to start iterating on that and test it. Like I said, you want to do quality. So you basically use to test the framework. So it's all that line. And this is the package. It's like I said, begin on speed when you're developing with the mean stack, and it makes it very, because it's using MongoDB, And ExpressJS, it makes it very easy to scale, especially when you have apps that are deployed to the cloud. Underlying technology, just a quick turn on Node.js and ExpressJS. Node.js is a service-side runtime using JavaScript. Like I said, a couple of years ago, that used to be like blasphemy, but it's turning out to be like one of the most revolutionary technologies that are out there. And Node.js is basic, it allows you to run your own web server, but ExpressJS kind of like web server to make it easy to create applications with. And why ExpressJS is powerful is that it makes it quite easy to build a REST API. And once you build a REST API, you can expose your data easily. Angular on the front end, AngularJS. If you haven't heard of Angular, if you have used it right now, you need to research. This was developed by engineers at Google to solve a total problem. And it's turning out to be like the most powerful web development out there. JavaScript is built with all of those principles in mind, so that once you use Angular to build an application, you already covered from the point of view of creating visual components, data binding, meaning that the data that's come from the database is instantly available and updatable with the components that you use in HTML. And testability and reusability is built into the framework. So this is not something where you have to use the framework, where you have to hack the framework to make what you need to happen. It's already built into the exposure. So really good principles that I want you to create these frameworks. And we don't only create web applications, like I said. Most of the time, we want to have the double whammy of web application and the mobile application. And if you have a startup, you know the cost of hiring an Android developer or iOS developer is exorbitant. You don't have that money most of the time. So there are actually HTML5 frameworks that I use out there, and all of them have their advantages and things. But the thing that I was talking about earlier with the addition of Ionic, which is a brand new mobile development framework built on top of Angular, is that it allows you to create a platform with a single footprint. You're able to create a mobile app for both platforms. Just by making minor modifications to your single footprint, you can make it adapt for both platforms. So you get, like more bang for the buck. It's gaining quick traction. This was something that was in beta. It's still in beta actually, but there are production apps that are used out there. But it's within. I can bet that within a year, this is going to be like the most dominant HTML5 market. Because it is good applications. And I hope that you don't feel like this. But I'm going to conclude my talk with just, that's, like I said, how to treat the nerds. So this is, if you're doing any kind of front-end engineering right now, this is a great time to be a front-end engineer because a lot of processes, a lot of tools that were only available to developers in the back-end before now have the equivalent in the front-end. So when we're talking about unit testing, when we talk about development workflow, when we talk about building modular code, we have tools that make it easy to create those apps and maintain that velocity right now. And it used to be when you were a developer, that means that you made a change, you press reload, and then you went and got from the to wait for the changes to appear. But now you have tools that automate that process to that make it easy to first get your dependencies. When we talk about dependency management, you have Bower, which is client-side package manager. A lot of the libraries that you need to build your tools you can report easily. You have Burn that allows you to go through. And basically, all those tools just make it easy for you to be up and running quick, to have a quick, like I said, development flow, and to be able to share that same set of processes across the world. And I'm going to conclude some of the applications that we built in this framework. We have AfriKit, which is an application that allows you to follow African football players wherever you kind of like build a community around there. We have Tonsorius, which is like Uber for barbershops and stylists. And then we have Edikia. A lot of you from African countries know the whole system of code hunting, or they can get money to run for people who put their money. Then got the money to get this through the cyclical fashion. Build that again, my name is Abu Khalid, Chief Mercenary at Coders4Africa. We hope to come some of you as clients soon.
Thank you, Abu. That was great. I understood everything. So, unlike most of you, I know. I didn't even need the presentation. I knew everything. So, next we have another one that's going to be just as easy to understand, of course, especially for me. And Ali Konet is next, and after that we'll speak with Amadou.
Thank you. Hello, can you hear me? Yeah, so I have the longest presentation, but I'll try to make it quicker for you guys. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the approach we take when we work in the project. And mention some of the technologies that we use. So my name is Ali Kone. I'm co-founder of Coders4Africa. I was there from the beginning with Amadou. And I'm currently operating officer. And my background is electrical engineering. 11 years experience in all of the companies. And I'm really passionate about functional programming. That's for some of you guys, you know. But really, I also like to have sorry. And that's why, you know, we are here at Coders4Africa. So topics, you know, talk a little about Coders4Africa approaches, interesting technology that we do and we use, some of the process that we use, and showcase an application that we have developed for Coders4Africa that Greg mentioned of amazing that we talked about. So Coders4Africa, of course, we know Africa. But more than Africa, really we love technology. We're all passionate about it, you know. And more than that, we're even passionate about providing practical solutions. We solve problems, you know, for people, and we always keep in mind, you know, the constraints that we have, and also consider the business side and the technology side also. It's really all of these aspects, you know, works together for us. You know, there's the business, there's the technology, and there's also the design. If you, like the big company, only consider the business and the technology, sometimes you will miss your experience, as David mentioned. If you more like the marketing and really worry about, you know, technology and design, you may create something that is not really practical or feasible to do. You know, it's technical viable. You know, or if you think about a startup, you know, have a great idea, design, you know, and you do all of these things, you know. Forget about the business side. So all of these are important for us in the really have to understand the environment. Make sure, you know, it's not something. You know, make sure, you know, like use, you know, like the tools, you know, that we have. So whether in Africa or in other places, we consider the constraint that we have in the present. So in mobile, I'm going to talk just a little bit about Africa. Currently, smartphones are 11% penetration rate, and about growing at least 40% a year. So it's growing. You know, in Africa we have more than 1 billion population, and so it's growing in people. Are getting more intimate with all kinds of devices, not just, you know, mobile, but all different kinds of devices. And the current trend, even for traditional applications, is to even think about because a lot of the same concept that you bring that, you know, and even innovative solution that some company provide, you know, to solve the connectivity problem. You know, Vumi, for example, provide a service where people can use demonstration connectivity where they can use SMS behind the scene or VSSD or the internet or even future, you know, to handle the wireless for that. You don't have to worry about it. This is an example of mobile improvement from Microsoft Stack. And suffice to say, when we develop for mobile, we have to consider the constraint that it's usually low performance. You have to worry about the battery life. You have to worry about the internet connection with the always connected. So you're thinking about the pace of time. So the data has to be cache replicated. You only bring in the data that you need. You have to think intelligently about the backend, where it's the server that pushes instead of pulling constantly. So there's all kinds of different things you consider for different projects, and you can also apply that in different settings. But I'll give it like that. But also there's also the security part, which is important. And to use a mobile app, you cannot trust anything. So you have to extract it. So those are some practical concepts to worry about. There's a lot of open source examples that we can do. I'm just going to choose one of them. Apache cannot be a simple solution that we can also use. If we just working with, for example, simple forms, they can provide us SMS connectivity with our servers. That's an example of what you just mentioned. Now, cloud is one of the technologies that we want to now, also it's something that in starting with English, everybody must start by now. There's a lot of benefits. Right? So it's flexible. It's you can use it, as a cost reduction measure. It's backups, disaster recovery, and it allows you to really process, streamline the process when you're having application that needs to be responsive all the time and available all the time, and it's all over in different ways. So, one of the practices that you get in application on the cloud is you get a lot of services that's given to you for free. You have a nice management interface that's given to you. You don't have to worry about the management of, okay, where are my hardware, how do I provision them? They're given to you as needed. And you can also do, set up the load balancing, set up automatic, scaling of the number of nodes that you need as you grow. So this is like quite important. If you, as a startup, for example, I start small, I only have 100,000 people using it. 1,000, but if you scale to millions of users, same platform. So we start from there, okay? And so a lot of people now are considering this technology from the get-go. It developed for the cloud from the beginning. And public cloud are the traditional that we know, Amazon, IBM software, and if you want to use it, the public want to use it, also you can have, you have to consider that you don't trust, these guys. So you can have a solution that has both where you get the benefit of both parts. Now, we have to manage data. Let's talk a little bit about data, because with cloud, it's a lot of data about this big data. And Abu mentioned earlier that some of the tools that we use was MongoDB, which is a NoSQL NoSQL solution. So traditional database are there, we still use it, they have their relevance. And there's different type of solution for database. These are some of them, and they all have their different pages. And depending on what you really want to do, something for caching, or you want to do something for analytics, or you want to do something more to serve your back end for your website or your application, you may choose a mix of these different solutions. But these are some things that are very attractive. Recently at the Universal Conference, IBM is saying that, you know what, we only hear there's like so much more potential data to be used, and it's increasing every day. There's so much more that we can do with it. So in order to process all of these data, we have to really have some powerful techniques and tools to do that. Hadoop, many of you may have heard of it now, is set to, you know, the increase of 20 or 21 billions, you know, in 2018. And I want to spare you the details, but suffice it to say, with Hadoop, you know, you can manage a lot of data. And one of the innovative things with it is the data is going to move. The idea is you move the processing into the data and maybe just move around the reporting, and then it is redundant. You know, it is thinking about, you know what, the application will still run even if there's a failure. So those are some of the way I would solve the big data problem. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about, I talked about the cloud, I talked about data, but all of the data goes somewhere and you have to make some use of it. But nowadays, we have all kinds of devices. And we're talking about, you know, this is just one example, but it's more. You know, it's Google Glass. There's all kinds of devices. And we have to think beyond, you know, we have this data. You know, it's not just a mobile that we're going to use to expose our solutions. We think ahead with different things. These are Arduino chips, like or Raspberry Pi, if some of you have heard. Some of them connect them to solar power. These give us, you know, some interesting ideas that we can implement even in Africa, for example, connecting them to some of the sanitation system, where it can track the usage of water throughout, you know, the country, and then have it automatically report to something that is somewhere, you know, what is the usage, you know, in countries. So those are like some of the ideas, you know. And I'll pass by those processes that we use to do that. So we talked about cloud data and all these different things. But in order to do that, you know, we really appreciate developers, you know, from our community, you know, that have some skills in different, from many backgrounds, database, front end, like gurus, you know, in deep programming languages, or even maybe just designer or people that have great ideas. We value all of those skills, and we actually integrate them as part of our training process. And we have like a unique methodology in all the work at Coders4Africa. We mostly use, you know, the traditional agile continuous as Abu talked about earlier, the agile methodology, Scrum, and we go through the iteration and make sure we document everything, report on it, and these are still very important on our report. And this is like a snippet of our management interface that shows, you know, everybody that is a developer works in, actually logs in and has a list of data that they have, and they can manage it and go through the iteration that we have specified earlier. And we work all over, you know, like we have a lot of teams in Africa, here, or not in Asia or in Latin America, but this just demonstrate that, you know, we use the tools of the trade that we have, you know, for the most of the skills, you know, and the unique identity. My World 2015 is an application that we developed for the United Nations. And it is a system where people can submit votes about things that are relevant to them. I see it not here, throughout the world. And it's having an impact, you know. And when we developed this, we actually developed it in the cloud, using a lot of technology, using Python, Java, JavaScript, as we mentioned. We're using some of the NoSQLs, you know, and we're actually also doing reporting. So all of the things that I mentioned earlier are part of this project that we developed. And we developed it across 2 teams, one in Senegal and one in Kenya, along with us here in the United States. And these are like some of the pictures, from the application. The one on the left side is a snapshot from the mobile version, and that's just a picture of some of the people in Namibia that have participated in the application. And these are different snapshots of the previous version of the mobile application. And this is one of the reporting that shows the mapping of the votes where they are. And there's also some of the analytics that we show out of the vote that we collected. I will complete there, showing a little bit of some of the technologies that we use in Coders Africa, how we go about it, how we do it, and understanding that we work with the constraint that we have and always innovate and provide solutions for you guys. That's it.
Ali, thank you so much for the presentation. Much like the one before, I pretty much followed everything. So next we're going to have Kwame Anda, and he's going to talk to us about digital analytics.
Thank you very much. How you guys doing? So my name is Kwame. Wanted to tell a funny story about how I joined and probably almost missed this boat, joining Coders4Africa. I got a call one day, I was watching a movie, hanging out with my girlfriend, and this young man who had what seemed like a Chinese, Senegalese, Belgian, I don't know what accent he had, gets on the phone and it's like, hey, I read a little bit about your work that you've been doing, and I wonder if you're willing to join the cause. And I was like, okay, so tell me about what you're doing. I hope you're not trying to sell it, because I don't have time right now. And so my dude was on top, and I'm like, wow, you know what? This aligns with everything I'm very passionate about. So I get on the phone with him, and my girlfriend is like, who are you talking to? She's inquisitive. So I said, okay, you know what? I was talking to this guy, Amadou. She's like, oh, Amadou, mind you, we've only been dating for like 2 months. Amadou, oh, yeah, I know. How do you know Amadou? Oh, I think he was my ex's best friend. Let me give this guy a call back real quick. So if I was a jealous guy, I probably would have missed this boat, but thank God I'm not, and it was just very great. It's been very emotional, traveling back to Africa and just having people come up to you and say, you know what, thank you very much for what you're doing. And I mean, this was just something that he called me and he said, I want to give back to our community. I said, you know what, I want to do the same thing too. And we're still here, all of us are still here. So definitely give Amadou a round of applause. So yeah, one of the co-founders, I'm the marketing guy, so I'm not going to be too technical on you. You can thank me later. I've been really into digital analytics work with teams, helping them gain insights from their websites, from mobile applications that they build, right? So one thing that we do for Africa is they build apps and just go out there, I want to change the screen to blue. Why? Blue's my favorite color. Seriously? You can't do that. You have to use data. You have to have it. You can add for your website. Teach them, tell them what's good, what's bad, and it helps shape it and improve it. So this is really the ecosystem of analytics. So exactly what is analytics? So it helps measure the content quality of your site or your app, to keep it very rudimentary. You can measure quantitative versus qualitative. You can look at that as like the what versus the why, right? So the quantitative can tell you what users are 10 people can look at this page, 15 people on the site for more than 5 minutes. Like, these are all things that you should really be thinking about as a developer. By the way, I saw a hand of the developers. Can I ask how many of you are actually using analytics if you create mobile applications? That's really great. Can I just ask which tools you use? Omniture? Damn, you got money. That's an expensive tool, man. What do you use? Oh, that's I'm not gonna say you're cheap, but you're very smart. That's good. It's a very good tool. Okay, so that's good. So at least we have some people that are being data driven, and then obviously the qualitative tells you why they're doing it. So this is actually like trying to figure out why this is happening. So there's a lot of testing that goes forward. We don't have to realize that some of our developers have to work on. So I mean, I kind of look at myself as a data evangelist. So I'm really trying to inspire developers to be data driven. So that's one of my passions. Obviously, it's not good to know what's happening on your website if you don't know why it's happening. And if you don't have a good understanding how the users get there in the first place, how are you going to optimize your application? Right? So this is all like common sense. So this is the crossroads, right? So we heard David talk, we heard Ali talk, and some of the things that you can track, you know, if you're interested, page or your screen views, unique visitors, that's just the unique kind of people who visit your website and visits. Like those can tell you very interesting things about your site. This is obviously not as detailed. Where's my Omniture guy? Yeah, it's always not as detailed as you can get with Omniture, but it's a good starting point for to get an understanding of how you can optimize your application, right? And then coding. So like what Ali was talking about, and oh, we got a kid here. Does he want to do data analytics? Yeah, man. Coding. So you know, you code the application. You use different types of tools, different types of programming languages. Oh, you can let it come. You can let it come. Let it be free. Let it be free, man. Yeah, you can hold the clicker from me. You know, so you do your coding. You want to know in-app how they're using the app. You want to know how fast your page is loading. Technical things like that, you can use analytics to measure, right? Because it will help you code a better application, actually. Your startup time, you know, if people are visiting your website using iOS or with different platforms, you can know because it helps you code and arrange things in the screen better for them. So these are just basic things. And then to go back to what David was saying, you know, click for what buttons, for instance, people are clicking on your app, the most shown screen, the users, how many users on iOS versus blah, blah, blah. So these are things that are good to know as a developer because you can get back and say, okay, you know what, why are people clicking on this button? Is it the color? Why are people visiting this page for so less time? Why are they not watching this video? Is it too long? You know, so these are things that I personally enjoy doing because you have to be like very inquisitive, you know. When I was younger, I think I was the one in the family who got beat the most by my parents because I would always ask why, right? And you know, African parents, they tell you do something, you do it. You don't ask why. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, I wasn't being disrespectful. I just wanted to know why you wanted me to do stuff. Oh, another thing, especially, I got a lot of questions from our developers, like who weren't using analytics, and said, "Oh, my bounce rate is 79%. That's good, right?" I'm like, "No, not at all. This is one of the ones where you want it to be very low, right?" So talking about metrics is basically the amount of people who come to your site, visit one page, and then they leave for whatever reason. You know, maybe they don't like it, maybe they don't like you. I don't know what it is, but they're leaving, right? So you definitely want to have a lower bounce rate. And you know, just going back to, you know, being inquisitive, some of the questions that you can really ask is, you know, how are people visiting your website? Are they visiting more from mobile? Because that's something that you can help you code. Maybe you need to code a mobile website or something like that. You know, how can you use this analytics to make better decisions? And that's one of the main things, not only in companies, but also just regular, you know, individuals, is you have to move away from using your gut instinct, you know, to use actual information of the people that are visiting the site. This stuff is free. There's so many tools that you can use to get this information. And, you know, it's like, you know, my wife sometimes says, like, you have the easiest job. You're like a weatherman. You just go, you predict how things are, and then if it doesn't work out, you just say, hey, it just didn't work out. You know, but I mean, you know, there's no science to analytics. It's a lot of experience, right? So you have to know. For instance, if I'm looking at a website, a publishing company, for instance, it's, oh, why is our data viewership so low? Oh, of course, it's a weekend or it's a holiday. It's like those are just little things that you pick up along the way, right? Obviously, which screens am I have visitors that spend the most time on and why? That you always want to optimize your stuff. If you see a pipe, a peak in something, it's like, okay, you ask yourself, why is this happening? How can I delve deeper into that to find out why, and how can I use that to make this tool better, right? And also on the technical side, like, device recording, app crash, like a lot of developers sometimes they will only worry about, okay, what is my app crashes? But you can deep dive a lot, like where it's happening, why the pages are not loading as fast enough. So I think analytics is definitely, it's the stepchild, because people are just like, oh, and actually the way we did this whole panel was very interesting, right? Because I went last, right? That's how it is. People don't think about analytics. They don't know, that's even in big companies. They don't think about that. It's always the last thing, the page, functionality, okay, we're ready to do analytics. Dude, seriously? You have to go through this code, you have to go through all this stuff. Okay, now we got to go back. So it's really trying to explain to people that this stuff should go to Google first. Tools, right there. There's too many. People say, okay, what tools should I use? What's your advice on use? To me, the tool is really not, it's important, but it's the person who's behind the tool that is really important, right? So you have to know what your business goals are, what your objective is, because those are the things that really drive the metrics that you pick, right? So the business goals, so I want to have, 20,000 views in a week, right? So that's something that you can track. You can track either way you want. I think I've been advising people towards Google Analytics because it's obviously cheap and it's relatively easy to set up. There are some really new tools out there. This one called, there's Segment.io. And what Segment.io actually does, which is really cool, you know what Segment.io? It acts as a mapping. So if, for instance, you want to move, say you're using Google and you want to move to a different platform, Segment.io actually lets you transfer all your data to actually probably 60% of all these different tools with just a click, right? So gone are the days of you have to load all your database and transfer all this old data. Everything is stored. You can store all your data, all your events. It's just a matter of click. Okay, now I want to use Omniture. Click Omniture. You put all your events and everything. Boom, it goes in there. It's really easy. So this is the future. This is the trend where people are trying to make things a lot easier. I'm not going to cover big data because this has really been thinking about the youth, right? And basically, we came up with this because people were asking a lot of questions about, hey, how can we be more data driven and what can we do? But if we have another event and people are interested in that, we can definitely get into that. Oh, that was short. That was good. So thank you guys very much. Really appreciate it. If you have any questions, I'll have to do a session after. Thank you.
That was great, thank you. So next we're going to have Ahmed, who's the co-founder of Coders4Africa. Welcome.
You know how long it took me to find this guy?
Oh, come on, man.
2 months. I was looking for Ghanaian developers in the US. He's the only one that showed up when I searched for his name. So. All right, we'll get into this. What is Coders4Africa? It's not going to be technical. I'm going to try to keep it so that you kind of feel where this fashion is coming from. What are we doing across the continent? What are we doing in the US? And eventually, what we're going to do across the world. So one of the co-founders, my background is as technical as Ali is, and maybe a little bit like both skills to use experience. Kwame is like dwarfing Kwame, so I'm just going to stick to basically showing you what Coders4Africa. So the agenda would be talking about pretty much 4 things. This is not going to be a long presentation, by the way. So I'll tell you about how we started. We made a pivot. Pivot meaning if you into the startup world is you follow one business model, and all of a sudden you realize, well, that doesn't work. Maybe you should do something else. And then I'll show you how a business model works, and eventually tell you what the future looks like for Coders4Africa. One of the things we were trying to solve initially, when it was 5 of us originally, by the way, we were friends. I think we sat down at my house. somewhere in Jersey. Yeah, Ibrahim is there, one of the co-founders initially. And we were trying to basically set up a company, an outsourcing company at the time. But we wanted to use African developers. We had no intention of using Asian developers at the time. But the problem we were faced with was we couldn't find the developers. We Googled, we looked all over, and we said, well, where are these African developers? Oh, I have a cousin who just graduated. Oh, I have, a nephew. That's what we heard. So it's kind of a little bit odd because at the same time, this was in 2009, end of 2009, we saw the numbers. Everybody heard about how many Africans use cell phones, and we know about the stories. But there was nobody who was adding value to it at the time when we started. Or if there were, we didn't know who they were. So, and we realized, okay, where are the jobs then going? Is there any digital jobs in Africa? And who would we talk to? And then we realized, okay, well, if there's no developers we can find in Africa, well, what should we do about it? And at the same time, there was finding the developers in the US was also difficult. I mean, if you're a startup or you're an organization you're looking for developers right now, they're very expensive, or basically, you can interview, another recruiter will take a month to find a developer. So it's very difficult at the time to find these developers. So we took it on ourselves. We said, all right, guys, we'll go and set up this company, not for profit. We invested our own money, time, and we decided to travel across Africa. So we started out with Senegal because I think, except Kwame, most of us have tied to Senegal. I'm from Senegal originally. Ali is from Mali, but he grew up in Senegal. Abu is from Cote d'Ivoire, but he grew up from Senegal. So Ibrahim is Senegalese, half his mom is Senegalese, but he's Malian. And the original also co-founder Mustafa was from Nigeria, but I think his wife is from Senegal. Right? Mali, oh, okay. So we'll go to Senegal because that was the most. And if you look at from the US, the first country you hit at the nose is Senegal. So it's only 6-hour flight or 7-hour, depending if you go from South Africa. So we started our first conference. It was much more people. It was, I think, 400 people sitting on the floors. We're like, whoa, there's actually developers in Africa. It was amazing. Then we're like, okay, we did Senegal, then that's when I said, all right, man, listen, we need somebody from Ghana. We heard Ghana is doing it, so we need to go there. You partner with us. Right? Actually showed up in school time after the thing. We were amazed. It was a 2-day conference. People, like, the testimony was tremendous. Oh, we got something going. Well, okay, we did Ghana, we did Senegal. We say Coders4Africa, right? That's the name. So we should explore more countries. Okay? We went to Kenya. Now, at the time, Kenya was being labeled the Silicon Savannah. You probably guys heard that term. A lot of things were happening. A lot of things were happening because there was one thing specific in technology that changed the way Africans were thinking, and that's mobile money. So M-Pesa was a precursor of things. Like when there's money involved, people start thinking differently, right? So they started using cell phone to pay for things. And today, actually, I've heard about this like 2 months ago. One of our developers told us that in the buses now, they don't pay with cash for the fare. They actually use their phone because there was a bunch of arguments between the driver and the guy who wants to pay and say, give my change back. So they come up with this, I think Google is behind it too. They come up with this mobile payment. So Kenya was amazing. It reinforced what we thought about. Senegal was great, but there was no momentum, right? In terms of innovation, there was a lot of people who went to school, got their degree, but stayed on it. Ghana had momentum, but it was a bit slow. But Kenya was the Silicon Valley, man. Everybody's a coder, everybody had an idea, everybody's doing something. We were very inspired by that. Then, okay, this is Kenya again. Then we went to Tunisia. Okay, one thing we realized is a lot of good developers in Tunisia because of proximity with Europe. And some of them think it's like European, or so it was no brainer that we'll find developers there. Then we went to Ethiopia in March, February, March. Actually, the program manager of Coders4Africa Ethiopia is here. He flew from Ethiopia 2 weeks ago. That Ethiopia is raw. I mean, the people we met there are people that are hungry. I mean, we saw it in Kenya. In Kenya, they more like entrepreneur-like. Ethiopia was like, we want to change the country, right? So, and the questions we had, and Abu will probably talk about the anecdote that he had. I'm going to talk about it quickly because, so Abu showed him the mean stack you guys saw earlier. There was one gentleman, after we left, a month and a half, built a whole app from 15 minutes exposure on mean stack. And he told Abu that my productivity now went 600 because he saw that. So the key there was exposure. We just showed him something else, how to do something else, right? This guy created an app called Vent Off, where you can just vent off, like you went to a store, customer service sucks today. Right? Show that. So this is the thing. This is wow. I mean, we saw, and Ethiopia is 95 million people, the fastest growing economy in Africa right now. 10 years ago, who told you that? So, and we visited we were driving in the streets with a chauffeur. We were seeing buildings after buildings after buildings. The infrastructure was amazing. The only problem is the telecom sucks. They still haven't moved to 3G because they have one monopole of a telco company called Ethiopia Telecom, right? Yeah, and it's a government based. There's no competitor. Any other African country might have 2, 3 telco companies. They only have one. So we're trying to change that. And I'll tell you some of the ideas we have about doing that. We'll see if the government will support us, right? So then, throughout those, since end of 2009, we built a community. So we put it under one umbrella called Coders4Africa, where we support these developers, we provide training, exposure. We basically listen to them. That's what we did. Today, I think, as of yesterday, was 1,508 managers. Keep in mind, there's a thing that says an application open for Coders4Africa project based training in Nigeria. We go there, that's it. Nigeria is 150 million, I believe. I'm pretty sure we can find 1,000 developers to boost this number up. So hopefully in the next couple of months we'll make that happen. I think it will go well. So some of the achievements there, we went across the Africa, trained, developed hundreds of them at different levels. Some of them we train them specifically for what we do and hire them. Some of them we just give them exposures, boot camps, and stuff like that in conferences. And then we built, throughout this training, the incubation software, we built 2 apps. Actually, it was a bunch of apps, but 2 really stood out. One is in cattle herding, and the other one is health. The cattle herding business was interesting because in most of the African countries, they have what they call they have a problem with cattle theft and disease. So people steal their cows, they don't know how to report it and causes stuff. Some gentleman named Amadou Sow approached us and said, hey, I have a problem. I'm trying to build this. I got to go to school to maybe middle school. But he was lucky enough to go on the internet and find us, right? Just looked up, sightings is in English, he speaks French. Looked up Coders and I think it was ICT, agriculture, something. He found us and said, guys, can you bear something? He's already got take a project and develop his work on it for 3 months, and we'll see what's going to come out of it. And I'm going to show you a video that BBC did. It's a 3-minute video. You can click on the watch. Oh, I forgot we didn't solve the audio thing. So BBC went to Africa in Senegal and was looking at agriculture. They did this video to showcase what we've done in 3 months. Microsoft is back in the project because they're financing the actual deployment of it, but the development was done by Coders4Africa. So what it does, it allows a farmer, actually a community farmer, to report theft. So if you see somebody else's cow based on a number with the initials of a person, you can text to a number, and every farmer who's registered in the system will get an SMS. So they can actually that's wrong. It's the British thing.
when the pig is stolen, it represents a loss so devastating that many families never recover, with some farmers even driven to suicide. This is a deep region, over 100 kilometers south of the capital, Dakar. Abdullah is a farmer and has lived here with his family since he was born. He has a herd of over 100 cows. The most recent loss was 7. He got off lightly. That night, 120 were taken.
This is our concern when it comes to raising cattle. It's our job. For them to live, it represents everything to us.
Proving that a cow is yours is tough, which is where our Microsoft for Africa backed project called Darrow comes in. We won't find high-speed internet cabling out here, so it relies on mobile phone technology.
Today, if you take 10 African people, 3 are computer. But if you take the same assumption, you have 10 people with 10 mobile.
Each animal is registered in a central database, which assigns it a unique number. The web app is accessed on a laptop, connected to the network using a mobile broadband dongle. Identified features are noted and a photo can be uploaded. So, when an animal is stolen, the farmer can contact the police and have an area-wide alert sent out via SMS. The system also gathers data on the health of the animals.
The farmers don't often respond to the vaccination campaigns. The response is really insufficient, insignificant. You'll go and see the head of the village and the boss of the cattle herders and tell them about it. But the day of the campaign, the farmers don't come.
So farmers are sent reminders. If an animal is sick, a message can be sent describing symptoms and asking for help. Talking to the farmers about their needs has been important. Since May, just over 2,000 have signed up in the 2 pilot areas.
You go, you get feedback, and you come back and you modify things. You just don't create the whole software and say, okay, here it is now. As you build it, you get feedback and you modify and you go along.
The next stage involves tracking individual cows by implanting scannable radio frequency ID tags that can be easily identified. Senegal's livestock is worth around $1 billion. But for the farmers of Gilo, it's a simple question of survival.
It's very serious because it raises a lot of concern for your family. It's really hard to lose your cattle. After great expectations, you just realize that you lost everything, and it's really difficult to face. So when you lose it, you will really feel it. It can transform your life.
Fiona Brown, BBC News, Gilo.
So that developer you saw, Monsufa, that was speaking, is one of the guys behind the My World project. He's also been through all of these different processes you guys talked about, and we trained him for 3 months. Right? Now he's one of our key guys. Yeah. So if you want to show the other one.
Thanks for having the largest spoken language in West Africa. DEFA is the centralized data built to see what it is
data intelligence to and to support better decision making, better action to remedy mental health issues in Africa. The goal is to significantly increase access to quality data necessary for managing and monitoring health issues in Africa.
One of the DEFA objectives is to provide an area and a customizable interface through which it will be possible to search for data in real time, high frequency and static data. From around the world.
I think technology is not cooperating, but you guys get the picture, right? So quickly, we're going to what we wanted to do was build an API. If I have somebody who's sick, about to go to the hospital, if there's an emergency, you want to see if a surgeon is on duty or how many beds. That's actually a big problem now. How many beds are open before you go there? You can text to a number, it goes to the API, come back and tell you which hospital has open beds or something. Right? So, you go to the next one. So the pivot was very simple. We wanted to make sure that we control our destiny. With the Coders4Africa nonprofit, the model was to go find money. You would think something like that would be supported massively, right? Like World Bank, United Nations, some of these people that advocate for development in Africa, you would think they would throw money at it. Like, oh, this is young people, that's what they do. We realize after 3 years, like, it's not going to happen. But we don't want to emulate the model that the African governments do, where they go beg for money, right? So we decided, well, wait a minute, we Coders created something out of nothing. We should be able to sustain ourselves, right? So we wanted to say, okay, we're going to go ahead and do 2 months. So we have 2 essential pillars, right? The first one is continue to grow the community, right? We'll continue to grow African countries and finding developments. The second one is let's offer some services now. Now that our developers know what to do, we'll continue to do so. And in the community side, what we do is we support the coders, we train them, and we hire them. On the software part, we do outsourcing now, so we provide high-quality international software development outsourcing services, right? From mobile app, web, doesn't matter, anything. And we have actually a good line of business now. We have a bunch of clients. And thanks to our marketing person here, where's Kate, we'll probably land more contracts to keep growing the business. And we also build our internal impact apps, and I'll show a couple of them. So we don't just do outsourcing, we also build our own solution that we can sell to the consumers or to businesses. And that's the low practical solution. So again, I'll just read this. If somebody asks today, well, what is Coders4Africa? It's a software development firm that trains, hires, and manages technology teams in Africa. We have distinct training program, outsourced development programs, and foundry programs so that we should grow internal ideas. So this is what we're thinking about, right? Because of mobile phones, this is what Africa should look like. Every country should be, having these mobile apps that people use. So what we position ourselves is to be the premier software outsourcing company in Africa. Think of it as borderline Microsoft, Apple, IBM combined. Right? That's what we want to do. And we also want to launch a bunch of apps because we realize now, okay, we serve customers, but we need to also prove the work that we have this high impact app like Abu showed you earlier from Sorius, right, for barbers. We also showed you Elika, which is the sharing or putting sort of like a saving system that Africa designed, thousands of years ago. And then we want to provide jobs, right? If you think of India, which has been the premier IT outsourcing hub, we want Africa to do so. Here's one of the apps that we think is going to be very high impact. It's in the Android store, but we haven't launched it yet. So our problem was when we were actually watching the World Cup, we built this actually 1 month before the World Cup. By the way, it only took us 30 days. Amazing. So we were like, wait a minute, there's no one single site where we can actually follow the performance, the habits, even the salary of some of these African players. Because they get lost into all of the other sites, like ESPN, Goldface, all of the other sites. So we wanted one place where a kid can say, hey, I want to follow DJ Drogba. I want to know whatever's happening to DJ Drogba every day. Okay? I want to follow Cote d'Ivoire. I want to follow Ghana, right? So this app allows you, and you can figure out ways you can monetize it. So in terms of our website, the Coders4Africa.org, because we have 2 websites, .com and .org. The .org will probably look like this in a few months because we wanted to change the perception. Before it was just raw, a bunch of people just registered. We want to make it more organized. That's it.
Thank you, Amadou. Next, I'm going to invite all the Coders4Africa presenters to come up here, and we're going to have a short Q&A, maybe 15 to 20 minutes. After that, we'll have a short presentation by one of the speakers before we break for lunch. Lunch will be at noon, and it'll be provided right here, so you can't leave. It'll be delicious, don't worry. Now, as I set up, I'm just going to point out a bit all male, and I'm not saying I'm looking for a job, but I'm like, if you guys need any addition to your team, I'm the one. Any Q&As? We have about 15 minutes, 15 to 20. Yeah, so you can just line up somewhere, or I'll bring the mic to you. I saw someone, I'll go first.
I have two quick questions. The first is I was just wondering into anthropology when it comes to dealing with UX. We see that Steve Jobs took that approach. The second question is around testing. Just wondering, are there like a best practices when it comes to the timeline for testing? A good example would be the Affordable Care Act. It did do a lot of testing on the website, but we all know what happened.
Well, the Jobs thing, that really was the so anthology. Human behavior, behavioral stuff. Yeah, and that's you really just have to understand your users. I mean, Apple, they have a very broad, all their user systems are very broad, so they're trying to think of the most human ways that people are going to use their products and what they need. If you have a very refined product, you have a clear value proposition, then you just have to think about those users. So, I mean, of course, you want to think about what your users need. Sorry, I wish I could do better. But as far as when you start testing, really we use an agile method. We start testing right away. We try and get our MVP out in 30 days, 60 days, quickly. And we're testing from the get-go. What you want to test, though, is really up to you. You got to make up your mind about what's important, because you can't test everything.
And just to piggyback on the testing piece, I think the problem with the healthcare.gov site was that it was just not one company working on it, it was several. So the failure there was integration testing. They had to see how all the system work together until they went back, and of course, what happened. So it's about the project management being able to identify that should have been identified as a high risk of the project. That's something that should have been addressed very early in the process. But in general, as far as testing, you want to make sure that all your eyes are going into that process. So it starts at the most basic level of testing, which is really testing at the development level. And then, depending on the resources that you have, then you have some acceptance testing. And also, hopefully that's what we're able to do. But integration testing, very limited in large systems that have to work together. That's something that's
I think also one of the first testing is like gauge testing. A way to measure how long gauge is taking, is it being slow or about time? That's something that we have to actually did that, but that is a good test for testing.
If we look at the CARE Act, I don't think they follow some sort of methodology that, for example, we are very keen on the agile approach. The agile approach says, okay, you have this big system, but you deliver it in chunks. Okay? So I deliver this piece, this piece, this piece, and so on and so forth. You deliver these, the client actually value. Right? If I didn't say, okay, accept this criteria, as we say, I accept, you can move on to the next one. Until you're done with the first one, you should be moving unless you have a large team that you can navigate to. But that system was huge. You can't do, that type of testing right off the bat. It's what they call the waterfall model, which is, right? But you have to do everything first, and if it fails, go back to re-engineer or do some things. In terms of the anthropology thing, I'm a big fan of anthropology, and, because just Africa is so rich with it and stuff like that. One of the things that's interesting to me is what they call the Internet of Things, the wearables, right? That's going to, just like we leapfrog a lot of the wired technology in Africa, we're on smartphones. I think with the Internet of Things, you're going to also leapfrog a lot of them on the medical field, right? If you have these little additional watches, if you have this watch that senses to keep track of your blood flow or something like that, and it can loop it back to a central place where people look at different things and can get it wrong and say, well, this guy's about to die of a heart attack, something like that. I think that piece of Internet of Things, I think we're going to get closer in Africa to at least to fight that.
Yes. Could you, just based on my experience, piggybacking on testing, one of the things that two of the most overlooked things are QA, quality assurance, and security. Especially when you're dealing with a lot of mobile apps and things like that. How do you guys approach those two areas?
Yeah. So basically, we work within the process. We actually have a list of best practices and templates that we use and checklists that we follow before even starting the project. So starting from the user design, from there you actually define what your user acceptance criteria are, and we put it against that. And we forces our developers to actually follow, PDD, which is design. So from there, we have that already set up. And as we move along, throughout the life cycle of the project, we have always testing. You deliver a part, but make sure you go into a setting where you have you show what is this. You don't even explain everything. Don't tell him what do you think it is. Make sure that it is a partial deadline. That's what we use processes.
So thanks for having this. It's kind of beneficial for me. I'm Quentin Barnes from Accelerated Best Goals and expose students from hostile environments to technology at an early age. I got a few questions. If you don't want to answer all of them, I'm not statistical, so it's okay. So first question is, I'm just going to get on to for user experience, right? So what would you say would be the top two most efficient ways to maximize or develop your app to get the best user experience? The next question is about cloud. I'm skeptical about doing things in the cloud, but I interact with a team that's all over the nation. Because I don't know if you're familiar with the law, whoever owns the server owns the work, right? So that's kind of another concern for me for the cloud. And the third is really simple. Does Coders for Africa have a central location where you can kind of scroll through all the apps that you can build?
I can speak to user experience. If you're asking for one or two products that are going to guide you through that, there's hundreds. We have select tools that we use, and honestly, we probably only use 5 or 6 software programs. Any shop is going to look at their tools. Sketches, we do low fidelity mockups. We're very open with communication with the client. Me as a designer, I speak with the client directly, which is nice. We get them on board. We're able to push out to their devices kind of a polished UI.
With respect to the cloud, we have a few solutions. So there's some people they have critical data they don't want to share. So that the only choice they have is private cloud. Because even if it was on the cloud, you have to do the same thing. You have to share. But note that certain of the vendors are special programs. Amazon, for example, has cloud for deployment, both as type restriction. And also, even though you can sign if you're dealing with healthcare and you're dealing with patient data, there is some laws you have to follow, and you can sign an agreement to make sure you adopt the thing and have to follow that. So, and this is one contract. So.
Yeah, I'll add on that actually. He mentioned healthcare because we have a client who we're building a product for, which one is to sign what they call an EAA. I told him what is it. So basically, it's an agreement between the cloud, where you have in the thing, the client, and then the client and us in the cloud. So it's a loop that anything will mess up, everybody's responsible. But in terms of cloud, I mean, you use cloud, whether you know it or not. I mean, if you have a Gmail account, using Facebook, all of those is hosted by somebody. Either like Facebook has its own data centers, whatever they want to do with the data, or you can, Ali mentioned, we're really big fan of Amazon. This is very simple, very easy to basic barrier to entry, very small. So it's going to go there, regardless of what we do. Is going to go there, whether you do private cloud or public cloud.
We're currently on a marketing initiative where we don't have it's like all the apps are listed, but it's in the works, and it should be probably the next couple of weeks or so.
Hey, thank you guys. My name is Matthew McAllister. I work at Coders4Africa here in DC, and I was talking with you guys this morning. We did a hackathon with you guys in Ghana a couple of weeks ago. It was awesome, and I was able to Skype in and see the awesome work that folks were doing there. So wanted to see if those types of like hackathons was an approach you guys took to do rapid development and get to that MVP product really, really fast. And then the main question that I had is esports kind of heading towards this direction of doing everything open source, using GitHub to manage code and let other people see what we're working on. And wanted to just get your thoughts on whether or not all the apps you're working on going forward are going to be open source and how you're going to contribute to that work. Thanks.
Okay. I can answer the last part of that. Respect to doing open source. Well, we love open source. We work on it, but open source is not really like depending on really what the project is. Some of the closed, commercial application makes sense, and we will choose that if we want to. But only and even our development tools, is based on the cloud. Like we move into that. So you mentioned GitHub, but there's technology where even our development environment is hosted in the cloud, and our developers don't have to worry about installing this, installing the different things. They keep the connection, and they can access the work right away without worrying about IT security. So that's where.
And in terms of open source, we actually have an internal project, and it's an application. It's called Mushi, and Mushi is a language in Africa. It's like a street code language that people use. And a couple of years ago, it was written using PHP, and we were using the bin stack, and the plan was open source pretty soon to kind of like display, okay, this is how we use the bin stack at Coders4Africa, and make it so that it's not just solution, but it's more like open source translation, like open online dictionary for any type of language. That's important.
So we did do a couple of events with Ghana and people, and I think Joshua Kim was the guy who reached out to us. That was basically that was an event called Coders4Africa in Action that we have. It was a bi-monthly event, and the aim of it was really to get all the techies together, right? Because everyone was like operating on different silos. Let's get together. Let's talk about the issues that we're experiencing. Let's talk about how we can learn from each other. So it's really a subset of this whole Pan-African mindset, right? How can we now, get together and share knowledge and help each other learn more. And I think it was very, very successful because another thing that we did was the practical-based project trip where we would pair individuals with businesses, right? So it's not just like, okay, here, code this thing for us. You have a client, you have to meet this client. Some of them are very difficult. You have to learn negotiation skills, business skills. So it's not just about coding, right? So that was one of the main things that we're trying to relate to people. It's like, okay, yes, learn a language, but you're a person. Like it comes down to the people, relationships, and we also try to, instill that knowledge in them through this whole process.
Quickly on the hackathon. So we have the capacity, right? We have the developers, and coding really means solving problems. And we sport have problems. If you guys, and I told Joshua before, if you guys want to create an agreement where we can go at it, even Ebola, we're talking about it. Some of the presentations we wanted to do was use Ebola as a theme. Because all the stuff we talk about, if you want to see, for example, how did Ebola progress in the past 10 years? You want to be using all the stuff we talk about, the UI side. You want to talk about the front end with the mean stack because JavaScript may be a map or JavaScript may post stuff. Where you uniquely put Sarah on and tell you how many people you added be in real time. Like you're adding these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You see what I'm saying? We're thinking about that. So if you have, let's do it.
So the question I had was probably more on the business side of it. I think that together stated that you started as a nonprofit, now we kind of shift towards business model. So in the outsourcing model that you guys have, is the idea to build a union kind of model where you're actually supporting companies here, because that's where the opportunities are in terms of high margin and things like that. Or is the idea still focusing on trying to solve problems that are in Africa where it's not required from a business perspective? I want to kind of talk a little bit about the strategy 2 to 3 years in terms of how you can grow this more from a business perspective.
Okay, that's a very good question because we get this all the time. So the nonprofit was necessary because we needed to find people, we needed to find developments, right? But we always had in mind that we wanted to do outsourcing, mostly from the US. But as we discovered, like, wait a minute, Africans do have serious problems too. But the problem, for example, if you have a group of developers in an African country, it's very rare that a government or a business will trust them to build some of these things. They rather deal with Western Europe, Eastern Europe sometimes, even hire some Indian to come to the country and do work. The reason because, one, exposure, 2, skills, right? So we said, okay, it is multiple ways of approaching the African's problem, but let's start crawl before you walk. If we get our developers to learn how to build cutting-edge technology, that means that not everybody knows it. You can go to your senior developer and means that they probably look at you like, why you want to do that, right? Teach them that you are at the same level. Those developers you saw in the video earlier can be hired right now at Google or Microsoft because they're young, they're actually more creative than we are because we just show them the technology. If we get these clients, right, and we manage in the US, by the way, every client is managed in the US. And the project is developing Africa. These guys started developing habits, discipline. Right now, they're all over the web, and these guys don't see. It creates a sort of an ecosystem that would allow us now, in 1 year, by the way, to go to the Senegalese government, because the Senegalese government adopted the Daral project you showed the last time. You go to the Ethiopian government, you can go to these guys, hey, we have a company registered in your country. You can do this. You don't need to hire the Indians. You don't, because we understand the problem. If you're going to do translation, how are you going to translate it? The Indians don't speak French, they don't speak well. So that's the strategy. The strategy is to be in Africa later. But these developers got to eat. Some of them are poor. Some of them have jobs. If I can give them $1,000 a month, just close to what even some doctors make in these African countries, they're happy to do that while they learn it and be prepared for the future.
Hi guys. Yeah, thanks for the event. Phenomenal. My name is Chester, and I just have a quick question. I was curious to know, does Coders4Africa have any competitors or any similar organizations trying to pursue this?
We don't have a problem like that. In fact, after over here, we organize the conferences. That's one of the reasons why, because that's something that's never been thought of before in this way. It's been in this way. So it's what we put together this conference because workers from other Africans that are going through different organizations. But as far as Africans, technologists together as a group, this is what this is meant to come out like Coders4 together so that that network can happen. And we hope to get competition because at the end of the day, like I said, we get that competition. Some people be like, hey, if you competition on these developers on these skills, I'm sure afraid that they're going to just jump ship and people will be on time. Like, please do. Because at the end of the day, the benefits is all. The rising tide moves all of us. Really, that's the way to go. So the day that we get a competitor, we know that.
I'd like to just add that we now relate what we're doing. It's like conference and say, hey, there's a perception of as though this X country and the perception is that this company is and the other thing too is that what really started this whole movement was the Pan-African mindset, right? So, yeah, maybe there's people that are trying to do the same thing in individual silo countries, but not on the scale of let's do this all over Africa, right? That was the whole thing Kwame Nkrumah tried to come about, this unity of Africa, right? How we can all work independently together to come according to one aim, right? So it's like on a bigger scale, we're unifying people in different countries who normally maybe do things on their own. And so at the scale, I don't know anyone that's doing
just one anecdote, like from university, this first part, I go sit and well, and I've heard of the tour in my mind. I never thought that I'd be going to the like maybe I want to maybe like I have business there, but March we were there for the conference. It just happened. I just discovered another part of Africa, so we got some. When there, we have some people from Senegal that went to Ethiopia. This country. So as Kwame said, it's just that an African mindset that we should try to foster.
I just want to add something to the real funny because I met Abu on MySpace years ago, right? Years ago. We never met face to face, but you know, we always be talking. And the first time I met him face to face was in Ethiopia. Can you imagine we met each other online here, but we didn't meet physically here. It just happened. Oh yeah, wait, I know Abu. There's a lot of this weird stuff going on, man. But that's how it happened, you know. So it's real. It's also it's a call, right? This is what we're called to do. We're called to give back to people. It's just not execution. Abu Dhabi hasn't been easy, you know. It's not been easy, but we're still here. You know?
I'm the executive director of an organization called Country. It's an anti-corruption organization. We help develop web and mobile applications that empower people to fight corruption. And for the last 4 years, I've been working in Uganda. I actually went to Uganda to start a renewable energy company. But the greatest difficulties that company faced, the first one was corruption, and the next one was probably managing human resources. Part of that, I think, has to do with the fact that you sign a contract with somebody, an employee, client, whatever. The contract's not worth the paper it's printed on. That's rule of laws and everything. So this gets me to my question, because I would really love to hire Coders for Africa. I hope you don't mind if I ask a hard question. I would really love to potentially talk to you guys about helping to develop these mobile applications that we're working on. But we were even trying to recruit developers while I was in Uganda, and just the process of getting homes took forever. Trying to increase safety to the force. It was just really, really tough. But of course, you find the laws, talent, and then there's about organizing and managing the human resources. So the first question is, so if I was to hire Coders4Africa, for example, the contract that I would sign would be management Coders4Africa, so you guys could ultimately be responsible for the U.S. jurisdiction. The second question is, how do you deal with, you mentioned it a little bit, but maybe you can dive into the nitty-gritty of how do you manage those guys over there that, because of so many problems that need to be solved, are in these environments that are sometimes difficult to work with.
All right, so we're actually solving the problem that you have. The barrier to entry with the contracts and stuff like that, we don't want any of our clients to go through that. So Coders4Africa is a registered company in the United States, right? Which means that we have to follow the laws. When you sign a contract with us, the project is entirely right? In the United States. So, and what we do though, we break these agile methodologies we talk about, is our core, is bread and butter. We break it into little tasks, very manageable based on the skills of the people we have. But most importantly, we have hired 25 core developers who, if they sit here, would speak the same message as we're speaking. So there's always going to be the lions, right? People who actually want to do this regardless. There's going to be what I call the hyenas, which eats after the lions, right? For the hyenas, we train them to get to become lions. We train them the way, actually, the work ethic of the United States that we learn in here, right? When you talk to this developer, they will speak to you in a way that you'll be like, Uganda, because we're not there. We don't have any representative. Talk to somebody in Uganda, you see, okay, I can trust them. But regardless, when we do this with us, we will go to and we'll worry about those problems. We've been very successful. That's why our biggest contract is United Nations.
And we will really choose, the people we will be trained. And when they participate in training, they work in like if they were employees actually. We don't to treat them as trainees or students. They're employees. They come, they have to come on time, they have to run their hours, they have to report, they have to do all of these different things. So and at the end, we actually evaluate them. And fortunately for us, when we did the first training in Senegal, it was 20 of them. Well, when 15 of them actually graduated, and all 15 of them got hired. Some of them actually came back to us as part of the science. So that's the process. We are really of developers, and
so these guys are actually employees?
Yes.
Yes.
So salary monthly, they get a salary every month, regardless of anything. Now we bring in contractors from our pool of them. Right? There's somebody who said, I want money. If we have time, or we didn't have any like that, so what we did was reach out to the community, went to cities, and made it time, and go on to the one. One of them had to let go because they don't follow up.
Also, the thing that usually the teams that we have, we also make sure that most of the time we are reactive, we actually have an office staff. So if they're working, they have to do that. Like, you cannot just come say, oh, my internet was not working. That's really exactly. If it is not for we have to
and like we have like check-ins, like daily check-ins, people who Skype, who like very meticulous about it. And like sometimes around 3-4 recording, and it's like we're having these conversations, projects, updates, what's going on, and like every single week this happens with every single technical all the questions operating now.
The question, and one of the things that Adam pointed out is that this is going to be managed by us. So we find that a lot of times that when it happens is that when those developers are getting somebody non-technical, they think that they can post and run around, but we know our stuff, so they can go to the samples.
Hello. Hi, my name is Enoch, and I was for I want to know what about this position. We have projects like they have projects like Ghana, where they could the internet boom is really to happen. I want to know what do you guys think about Coders4Africa is more so, since Coders4Africa is more so focused on the software aspects of IT. But what do you guys think about the hardware aspect? And secondly, the hardware manufacturing aspect, because a lot of kids in Africa, the youth, there's a lot of youth there that probably not even 30%, not even, only about less than 30% of the youth there have access to that. Another problem is the internet. It's not like over here, like in some African countries they have 2G. All majority of African countries, except from South Africa, they have 3G. And some other places that don't have 4G. But you know, how can you guys help? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so like, if you follow my presentation earlier, I emphasized two things. One, we work with the constraint that we have. So connectivity problems, like raw resources or different things, there are solutions to that. M-Pesa was created with the technologies that they had. So similarly, we can work around those problems and improve on that as a team. Now, the second thing with respect to the devices, of course, we're interested in them, and actually looking at them have like a research team where we think about these things. However, we really still have to go one thing at a time. We do not the right things, also the right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll add something. I have this way of thinking. Before, when I was a little younger, okay, Africa is a big problem. That's why you have the U.S.-Africa Summit. Everybody's talking about this. But at some point, I think sometimes when you give your opinion on something you don't master, you become dangerous, right? Everybody's an expert on ICT. Everybody's for coding, SMS, all of that stuff. We took a step back and said we're going to specialize ourselves, okay? Because then we can tackle that problem. Versus all of it, okay? What's the thing that we need to do? Take Google, take Facebook. How much is it worth? It costs 19 million people. Do you know how many around $19 million? It doesn't have to be just software. It can be telemarketers. It can be anybody, the distribution system, marketing online. There's so many things that can come around it. Even on a mobile phone, somebody can manufacture. That guy now can make money because of what's up. If we are able to come up with one app, right, just one app, that has the value of $1 billion in Africa, don't you think we're going to change that economy? There's no one app that's not $1 billion in Africa yet. Once we get there, it's going to change everything. You know why? The telco company will jump in. They're going to start investing more on 3G. Everybody will out there. If you start out there, you start using I don't think you know how everybody's going to get on board. Businesses everywhere. So that's why we focus on specific warehouse software.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask you as far as high level. One of the things I experienced, I know Indians have been mentioned a lot. Where I had married, just became the largest hotel. It was about OTB, it's almost next to it. There's more. And one of the things I heard is that the infrastructure that we have in India is set up. And where it comes is where I was asking some of you guys is that I know I applaud my brother just for the Bible that development. But the economic power that I see is not because they're Indians, it's because if you're coming into my country and you're going to do business, you're going to hire my people. And I look at it like you see big corporations like Marriott who are now saying, hey, there's some money over there. At the same time, it has to be a situation whereas, okay, we're going to build 300 hotels. The IT departments are going to grow, And so what I was going to ask you is that, when you have a situation like that, when you have a corporation coming in that's bringing not only jobs, but infrastructure, needed infrastructure to a lot of areas in Africa that have it, how do you deal with, I think the difference between like in India and Africa is India, even though they're not homogeneous, which a lot of people think, they only have one government. Africa is not homogeneous, but you have so many different entities that you have to deal with. And I was just trying to figure out, how are you guys starting to deal with, maybe the marketer can talk about this, dealing with the different types of avenues that you have, with peoples and factions that you have to deal with, just to continue to grow as an organization?
Well, I think I'll answer the question about the Unity Fund. I mean, the funny thing is, like, we really haven't, like, what you're describing on the government, it's not really trickle down to the people. Like, everyone is peace, right? We're all unified. We have this understanding that technology is going to help us get to that next step. So, you know, I know there's a lot of stories about, you know, tribal wars and all these, you know, the different aspects that happen, the negative things that you hear. But I mean, with the people, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but with the kids that we meet, they're all on the same mind, even before we meet them. So it's not like we have to come out to change, have to change. You're already ahead. They're in terms of understanding that we have to do that. The understanding that, you know, all this, there's no space for that in the virtual technology. No, that's true, but even before the money comes in, what I tell you is that they're already on that mindset. It's not about the money for them, right? I mean, I don't know where the kids that we have in the house have
Right.
How are you, what is your plan on dealing with the corrupt government?
So,
basically what happens once you start getting that money.
right. The answer right now for us is
we'll get to you in a second.
Yes. Right now, one of the things that's really at this level, and that was one part of all people that are doing those actions that we think the work is that don't really got to solve the problem. That's an understanding that as technology, really the $1 billion app is what's going to do it. And then the government has to follow suit. When we went to Ethiopia, one of the complaints that we heard from the developers is that the government is not encouraging technology, you know, flow technology. They're not really involved in what we're doing. And when we tell them, you're the creator, you're the developer, you're the one with the skills. Before somebody takes you credibility, you have to show them that you have earned that credibility. And you're a developer, you have the skill, use it, and show them that you can do it. So it's part of that spirit of entrepreneurship, that spirit of do for self that we really trying to impart to them, is that they don't, sometimes you just don't realize that the skills that they have are valuable because true environment has value. It's true. I was in Ivory Coast in May, and I heard the same thing. Like we said, you can do the work, but the companies rather contract with the public government, rather contract with outside. So one thing that we usually like just based on that venture, because the companies feel comfortable with all that things that by dealing with locals, like, and we won't have to do the little anymore because they know that they have to do the talent to be able to do the job. So right now, we don't make governments part of the equation. They have to deal with us when we come up, but we don't put them in the part of it right now.
Hello. Thank you all for your presentations. My name is Mado, and I actually work on technology programs at the National Center for Institute. And some today, actually, I'm launching a huge studio, which is a really interesting program. And the purpose of it is really to address that challenge we talked about, in terms of the skill, in terms of actually the scope of technology is the application of technology. So we also have to make sure everything open source and actually access it for people that are less fortunate as well. So my question for you all, if you're thinking about starting by developing these tools to make things really easy to package it in a basic way. For you all, I'm curious, in terms of the application, what do you all see as being the gaps in the application of technology for development? In terms of organizations like ours that are looking at implementation, what are things that we need to think about? If we're developing technology-enabled programs that we're launching in the field with partners, Nigeria partners So if you could talk about
I just mentioned we get all the questions in so that we have this more expert as we are. So we get all the questions in.
Hi everyone, my name is Dr. Lawson-Burke, and I'm with a nonprofit organization called Activity Today. And one of our objectives is to provide training for middle and high school students. I'm going to partner with institutions. So you guys are people stuff that I think
My question is just, how do you manage all those people from all over the world? I mean, they have online applications like Class and all this other stuff. What are you all doing?
My name is Leroy Wilson Jr., and I'm not in the software business. I'm an attorney. I'm retired and transitioned to relocation with my initial conference came in 1973 when I took this piece of law practice. And I'm not going to tell you about all of my background, but I have been in touch with various African countries since then. And I must mention to you that one of the reasons I relocated to Botswana is because my wife lives in Botswana. With respect to the question of corruption, I just want to make this I'm absolutely exhausted because I've had 2 weeks of very intensive seminars, discussions, late night talks, and all that sort of stuff. But one of the things that came out during this week in Washington with the young people is that the problem of corruption is being looked at on a number of different levels. One level that I want to point out here is that the young people themselves are pretty pressure on the leaders of these various countries to address the corruption issue. In the seminar yesterday, I think it was, the ACON put on, one of the singers, the branch, I think, said that they were trying to get a million people in Walmart to address a social issue. I think it's Nigeria. In any case, they got 2.5 million signatures. Now, the other thing that's happening is that the singers in these countries are delivering social messages. And one of the things that there was another element pointed out is that the singers are now more powerful than politicians. So I just want to point that out so that people might keep their eye on that particular trend of young people themselves putting pressure on their leaders to stop.
Hello. Amen. I got one question. Just I don't know. I was away, but it might have been asked. But so I've been teaching over the course of the summer. I've been teaching my sister. She's going to be a doctor. She wants to be a doctor. But I thought her be an interesting exercise to help her learn how to do some basic like SQL stuff and also front-end stuff. But I wanted to hear about your experiences with women on the continent and coding, and what are you seeing on the continent right now in terms of interest, and then also opportunities for women who also want to empower women to code. Yeah, we need to close it out with the questions. Yeah. So we actually recently partnered with Google. Google gave us actually some money, right, to go out and teach girls how to code. We just finished up one in Senegal. I think girls in high school learn how to code. They're actually building their website for the school now in a neighborhood called Parcela City. Right? It's a populous sort of a place. What we teach them is 2 things: Python, if we can, Android, and sometimes HTML. And the concept, though, the trainers don't teach them how to code really. They teach them how to solve problems. Because coding is just a tool. It's like you can use any other industry to do what you need to do. But you really need to think about how do you solve problems. First of all, identify the problem, then find a solution to it. And coding can be Their problem was they didn't have a website. Well, you know, they had Facebook page, but they didn't have a website. So with this initiative going, we're going to go to Ghana next. Then we're going to go to Ethiopia, right? And then continue doing this thing with a little bit of money that Google give us, but you know, to make it happen.
I just want to say it was actually a Google Rise Award, so they didn't like as videos on. But what really happened is we're replicating the same thing that we started in Senegal. Once we learn from it, we'll take it to Ghana, and we'll take it to other countries that were operating in Africa. So to answer your question, like that's something that we're very, very interested in doing, and you know we know that's at the forefront to represent these like underrepresented women in Africa as well.
And just a question. When we went to Ethiopia, it was actually the country where we have the most women turn out for the conference, and we give them a shout out for this. And we also need to be confident that there's going to be more women in technology, because I don't know about you, but growing up in Africa, number one in the class was always a girl. And I was doing scientific math, so I'm not worried about we just giving that exposure. Just one of your questions go and conferences to the office. One issue that I have to deal with is abilities. There's one of the but you get most of the time. That's what we like to that issue. So it's nice to build with if you can build share in the world.
And so that's why we kind of push it in our providers. Sort of like Kenya and thinking about these services. And you know, with us, information movement, solutions.
The question about training again, I think it wasn't specific to first, right? So I looked at it, is this for yes. So when it's so many, you know what I mean? So I don't think that will be a big problem there. I think that the next thing that's going to happen is going to be more technologies in Africa than the US. I believe that because everybody's going that. They think that because of mobile phone you should be a coder, so we'll teach you that. In the US, I'm not sure. We've been looking for a partner in the US that can sort of create a Coders for Africa brain. Call it. So far, people are doing everything.
There's an organization called Black Girls Code. I'm not sure if they're based in Philadelphia, but like maybe that's someone, you know, if you want to reach out, you can reach out to me later, we can talk about it. If you have some contacts with me.
That was another question, right?
Yeah. Yes.
No, it was we're gonna start. Oh, how do we manage anything? So we don't manage anything. There's some things we manage, the other one is just the hackathon way, right? So it makes sense. It's totally involved. You don't manage it. They come to you, say, I want to be part of this. First, they assume, how can I be employee? They say, well, you got to go to a training program. Okay? Oh, the online too. Oh, okay. Yeah, we have a bunch of
we use, you want to know that we use Active Collab. Yes, yes, that's the one I'm using, but we customize.
All right, so we have one presenter that's going to go first. He's here, and his flight leaves soon, so he has to come up immediately. And then after him, while we wait for lunch, we'll have three presenters remotely. They're going to come. They're going to present using Google Hangout. So that's awesome. So our first presenter is John Gapau, and he's a seasoned user experience architect and strategist with over 15 years of experience under his belt, helping commercial, nonprofit, and public sector organizations conceive, create, and deliver people. He's right here behind me. You can watch him while I read his bio. So create and deliver people-centered products, services, and technology solutions to the market. John is the founder and director of UX Strategy and Design at Experience by Design, a Washington, D.C.-based UX strategy and design consultancy. He started it back in 2001. John also serves as a VP, Product and User Experience of Goalface.com, a global football, soccer, website and digital services startup. Welcome, John Dakao.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for that great introduction. Before I get started, I really want to thank Coders4Africa Conference organizers for inviting me to speak with you today. It's a great opportunity, and to be honest with you, it's really just based on the panel that we saw before, the group from Coders4Africa, it's a really fantastic time in Africa right now. I was just there a few months ago. Incredible. There's nothing better for me in Africa. So because of that, I go on my wife, and I promise not to stick to my experience. Okay? Now, I even this in Africa, before you start talking about your work goals, and getting into all the details, the most important thing is to first, introduce yourself. And then once I figure out the technology. So behind me is a picture of me, my father. We're on the western side of the Rift Valley on a piece of land that was owned by my great-great-grandfather. The language there is Swahili. Can anybody guess where I'm from? Close. That's right. I'm from Kenya. I currently live in the United States. Here they call me John. Many times I relieves people and elicits chuckles and laughs because names that start with MD can be a little bit challenging, at least here. But you know, Oboe in Kenya is literally like John in the United States. It's a very common name. So in terms of what I do, I have actually two jobs. My first job is with Experience by Design, which is a user experience consultancy I founded about 12 years ago. Really our focus at the end of the day is helping create people-centered solutions. All of you use technology, I'm sure you have, just like I did at the very beginning, challenges and get up to speed. The thing that I do, my second job is global. So as far as when we talk about me being involved in user experience, I'm an information architect. And what that means is I spend a lot of time organizing, planning, and creating blueprints and specifications for planning. So here the type of models that I create. And what I also do is function as a user experience strategist, basically taking people, creating roadmaps to define and get the teams. By teams, I mean not only developers, but the stakeholders, all the people involved in green technology, the money behind it, the teams who fund it, onto the same page and developing a clear direction. So I am the VP of the customer experience. And really, Goalface is about is making it easy and fun for people to follow their favorites all around the world. So imagine represented here is a fan from Ghana. Now, Ghanaians play all over the world, and they're not just in the Premier League or in the big leagues. They are in Australia, other parts of Africa. These places don't necessarily have that global distribution. So we provide basically a way of unifying and following those players, and make it easy. So the way that we do it is we basically provide a website and various types of applications where I can customize it and have a dashboard. And through that dashboard, when it's like things that I like, I'll start to get information from them. And then we allow them to syndicate it to their favorite places so that they basically have access to their favorites anytime, everywhere, whenever, and however. We also offer solutions for football professionals as well. And, it can be football professionals as famous as Yaya Toure, who I've represented here, but it can also be much smaller football players who go through their career. We have these tools that allow them to basically build, manage, populate, engage a global fan base. We have all of these channels, whether it's by email, Facebook, through their own website, providing content that is very low maintenance, almost even in some cases automated, so that they can kind of populate those platforms. So the work that I do, when it comes down, if you boil it down to its essence, if you will, it's really about making business technology and information that is right. People use that technology they tend to use the tool as it was intended to be more informed. They can use the technology once they're enabled. What's fantastic, from Coders4Africa, they are connected, they can communicate. It allows them, because it becomes a tool they're not encumbered, it allows their creativity to come out. It allows them to be more resourceful. And it allows them to be more productive. So part of what Coders4Africa asked me to do is also kind of talk about the technology that I like, that I work with. I work with all I'm not a coder, but what I'm particularly interested in, what I really want to do, is work with technology that enables people to do what it is that they want to do and achieve their full potential. That's what I'm most passionate about. So technology that makes things easier for people is really what the focus of my work and my passion is about. So we're involved in terms of the relevance and contributions to the work. We're involved by engaging people in Africa around their interests and passions for the beautiful game, and that's what Boldface does. But it's also available to people in the United States, Europe, what have you. Just as I heard the team talking, everyone was saying that they're from Senegal, I went ahead and created this slide, which basically shows, for example, that Africa Cup of Nations qualification is going to be starting in a couple of weeks. We have, a shot from the website, but also how we syndicate that content to Facebook. In Africa, 5 months ago, from nowhere, it's amazing. In terms of the other work that we do at Experience by Design, my user experience consultancy, we really focus on helping make our products much more user-friendly, much better. So I have here before and after. This is before we worked on the left side with them, and afterwards. Really kind of much more engaging, much more accessible content. foundation for hospital system. Sorry, up on the left and to the right is after retouched. Much more usable. People who were looking at patient records understood what they were looking at much better. Their efficiency and their ability to deliver services to customers was just phenomenally improved. So what I was also asked to do was to talk a little bit about, if we took you to Africa today, how could you make? What would you do? How would you be relevant? What contributions would you make? The first thing I would do is probably to use the mainstream. Sometimes people have tools, people don't understand, they don't adopt. What I do and what my teams do is we go in, we do deep dive with users, say, what are you trying to do? Why doesn't this work for you? Doing that research. What are your needs? What are your goals? And we help try and bridge that gap. What we can also do, another contribution I think that's important, is we can bring a systematic approach to actually developing products that are people-friendly. This is usability, user experience are hot topics in technology all over the world right now. So that's something that we can do as well. We've had a very established systematic process in place for the part of 10 years now, and it works. So just in conclusion, what I'd like to say, leaders to talk about stuff. There's really no right? As the folks from Coders4Africa talked about, is there is definitely first of all, there's a great amount of talent in Africa, and there's a lot of need. But I think in terms of green technology that's people-centered, we have to think about the people. When you think about people, they're not in a vacuum. They have life ways, they have beliefs, they have needs that are, specific to their particular cultural and social needs. And we should be focused on that. Them, their cultures, their needs, their context. So what I would say is, as we move forward, I hope that we dream big dreams and shoot for the start. Africa, it's not only problems, there's a lot of opportunities as well, and there are people who are thriving there. It's just maybe connecting the dots a little bit, surfacing those dots. So with that, I thank you. Again, my name is Bobo Mikal. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, John. Next, we'll have Rafael D'Souza, who will be joining us in Google Hangout. He's based all the way in London. And I'll read his bio while we set up a connection. So Rafael D'Souza is a London-based and bilingual French-speaking digital marketing strategist, business development professional with a passion to match a proven 11-year track record within the digital market space. Particular expertise in delivering effective consultancy and creative business development approaches to many of the world's leading brands and marketing agencies. Other passions include painting as an accomplished oil painter, cooking and farming in his native country of Togo. His origins reflect a mix of Brazilian and Nigerian influences, and his regular presence in West Africa helps maintain and grow his love and affection for the continent. So as soon as he comes on, we'll welcome him. And after that, we'll have two more Google Hangout presentations. And the next one will be from Tayo Akingambi, and then Lamin Ba. Thank you.
Hi there, guys. Hello?
Hi, Raphael.
Okay, cool. I'll pick you guys now. Okay. So just based on those questions, you can. All good. Okay, so yeah, just a quick reminder. My name is Raphael Souza, and I'm from Togo. Okay, yes, sorry. Just yeah, my name is Raphael Souza. I'm from Togo. That's my ethnic origins, and I am the Director of Business Development for a digital marketing technology company called Searchmetrics, heading up the UK, Northern Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And I guess in terms of what, how relevant what we do is to Africa, well, first of all, the most exciting technology platform I'm working with is a proprietary platform called Searchmetrics Suite. And that is something that we have actually developed. In terms of what we bring to Africa, we just opened up for research to Africa, and that is around search analytics, which is very important for bringing brands and end clients together. And what I'd love to do is choose any country right now. Think that we to help enhance and facilitate access to different types of information through technology in Africa. It's very important in my humble opinion. That's it. That's me.
So what we'll set up for the next two speakers, we'll have someone who's here in person, and that's Dauda Bai. I'll read my way. All right, so Dauda Bai's background is in networking and communications technology. He serves as the Assistant Director of Communications Engineering Services for the George Washington University here in Washington, D.C. As such, he's responsible for all data, voice and video communication for a community of 35,000 users spanning 3 campuses. Dauda is also an entrepreneur who in 1999 co-founded the leading Senegalese portal, Seneweb.com, which serves about 40 million pages monthly. Today, Seneweb LLC is an affiliate, Seneweb Networks Senegal, that has about 30 employees. Welcome, Dauda Bai.
Thank you, Diana, and thanks everyone. Maybe one standing between you and lunch. I'll be very brief. Basically, my background, like you said, is in data communication and network engineering. I'm not a software developer, so the first part of it was very instructive to me, so I did learn a lot, and I did want to thank Coders4Africa for, first of all, having me here today to exchange with you all, and also for educating me, because I learned quite a great deal. So, you know, I'm also like to say I'm a founding member of Seneweb.com. Some of you who are from Senegal Senegal or from Francophone Africa may know about the site or have visited it. That's a site that's been around for about 15 years now, and today we are one of the leading Francophone Africa community website. We provide news and back in the days when forums were a big thing, that was a great deal, but it's still a site where people meet, to find out about what's going on, to exchange, to meet, and I want to give maybe a quick history about Seneweb. It's amazing that we are here today because. Oh, I'm sorry. Is it better? Okay. So I was just going to say, I'm going to give a brief background about Seneweb and how it started. It's quite amazing that we are in this building today because me and my business partner, we actually met about 16 or 17 years ago, right on this block. And we were still going to school at Strayer, which I believe has a campus now even next door, but it used to be a couple buildings down the street before that. So that's actually where we met. And we happened to be in the same class about Intro to HTML. And we had a class project to basically build a website. And I guess we did pretty good. We did build a pretty basic website. It was quite interesting. And if you all remember back in the days, that was the big .com fever and the boom. E-commerce was just the next great thing. And we were like, wow, why don't we go ahead and build an e-commerce website? So we took it very seriously. We wanted to do that. But then we realized that we wanted to sell product to the Senegalese diaspora and the community. But one of the big challenges we had back then was how are we gonna publicize? How are we gonna let people know about this site that we are building? And that's when we realized that there was a big void in the online landscape, if you will, in the sense that at least back in the days, there were really no site for the Africans to go to meet or to basically, share. And that's kind of how we put that project on hold and say, let's just build that. And that's really how Seneweb started, pretty much. So it took a long time to build it. Back in the day, I still worked for a third party, but he also was working for a company called Quest Communication back then. So we were still working our full-time jobs and working on evenings and on weekends on Seneweb. And basically, after a few years, we reached a point where the site had grown and could sustain itself, and slowly we started hiring a couple more people. And today we have about 30 employees between here in the US, back in Senegal, and a couple in Europe. So, and we are hoping to grow it further and even beyond Senegal. So that's a little bit of background, and I'm glad that there are now companies or enterprises like Coders4Africa, because over the years we just could not find. We do find a great deal of outsourcing. So we have worked with people as far as Ukraine, as far as India over the years, but now we have these guys we can go to, and that's quite exciting to be able to do that, and at the same time know that we may not be throwing our money away, because hopefully part of it will go back to the community. So we are thrilled and very happy about that. So I'll be in a panel later on about content and technology. That's really what I really feel strongly about, and I guess I can talk more about it because my background in communication allows me to really have a critical look at how networking, mainly internet, is being, I guess the service is being provided in the continent. I do think that while it's great, we heard the numbers about how fast it's growing. We heard previous people talk about 3G taking off and all that stuff. But if you look at the big picture, we are way behind. You know, today I think there's about 16% of the Africans who have access to the internet. That's just basic access. If you're talking about broadband access, it's much lower. We're talking less than 5%. So these are shocking numbers, but it's great to do what we do, but unless we have a good, reliable, affordable, and decent, a good way to access these applications and these content, then it's kind of good. So we need to see how we can contribute. We may not be able to go everywhere and fix it, but we do have ideas. Luckily, there's a lot of these problems that have been solved elsewhere. So we don't need to reinvent anything. We just need to look at what was done in other places around the world and try to learn from it and adapt it to our context, because obviously it's very different. So with that said, like I said, I'm not going to be very long. I look forward to the panel, and hopefully we can have some more exchange. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Next is Mr. Al, and he is the founder and CEO of Propaganda's Art LLC, a consulting and multimedia production company developing for businesses, professionals, artists, and organizations, innovative business solutions through new and emerging technology. Based between Washington, D.C. and Dakar, the company specializes in business consulting, promotion, media relations, and multimedia production, including television, mobile phones, printing, vinyl, and web content. In addition to running Propaganda's Art, Mr. Al also serves as an advocate and activist for Senegalese youth around the world. He is the founder of Yes We Can Project, a strategic, long-term leadership initiative tailored specifically around the 8 Millennium Development Goals and committed to use arts, community development, information, technologies, and news programming for sustainable changes in Senegal. He is the producer and host of the weekly web show, Le Boy Town Show, in collaboration with Seneweb Networks. Please put your hands together for Mr. Al.
Hello, everyone. I'd like to begin by quickly thanking Coders4Africa for organizing such an important and great event. I'm extremely excited to be here with you. Yes, I'm going to meet you. Otherwise, I will lose it. Yes. Yes, I was saying I'm extremely excited to be here with you, my African brothers and sisters, as well as all friends of Africa who are today united in a common vision to develop our country through new and emerging technologies. I was asked briefly to introduce myself, to say who I am, what I do, how I do it, but mostly what impacts my work has on the local African community in general and Senegalese in particular, which I will try to do in 5 minutes. My name is Abdoulaye Al. People call me Mr. Al. I'm the founder and CEO of Propaganda Consulting and Multimedia Production for offices in Maryland and Dakar. Propaganda develops innovative business solutions through emerging technology for businesses, professionals, artists, and organizations, like she said. In few words, we produce and deliver digital tools such as web pages, mobile apps, CRM, as well as video, web, and audio content for professionals and from several sectors. At the same time, our services extend to digital marketing, community and content management, graphic design, and many other services designed to help the African entrepreneur to be more competitive in the local and global market. But also something very important to us, we are using also technology to promote the transfer, the exchange, and the sharing of knowledge between local communities established in Senegal and its diaspora scattered around the world. Over the course of our existence, we introduced many web platforms delivering useful and important information to a large mass of Senegalese and Africans around the world. Then our weekly community radio program hosted by our partners Seneweb attracted tens of thousands and thousands of students every month. I'm not going to dwell much more on propagandas, but we'll focus on the great economic market the African continent offers today. And most importantly, how we can use technology to change economically, but also socially and politically our continent. According to a recent McKinsey report, the continent consumer industry is expected to grow by 400 billion, representing the single largest business opportunity by 2020. McKinsey Africa Consumer Insight Center surveyed 13,000 consumers in 10 African countries, with a focus on the largest cities. 5 categories of consumption were covered: apparel, financial services, groceries, and particularly the internet and telecommunication. But according to McKinsey, many companies don't know how to translate this potential into profits because of a lack of market research and understanding the complexity of the African demographics, which brings us to consumer education and the importance of understanding our markets. Why? Because I see one of our biggest challenges today as IT entrepreneurs or as an IT company operating in Africa. And I want to mention it because it's a recurring problem I encounter every day on my own. Despite being just like our urban counterparts anywhere in the world, with both brand and quality conscious and seeking out the latest trend, we lag behind in many ways when it comes to technology, especially those who are in Africa. And the question is the new African consumer prepared to easily digest this complex foreign so new to him? Are the African entrepreneurs, for instance, educated enough about the products, the apps, the tech innovations presented to them to be able to even see the profits? Therefore, the needs. Are they equipped to follow the African tech revolution and become active consumers? And I believe the answer is no. The reality is, yes, we produce and we sell a lot, but we do not educate our consumers enough, as they often fail to capture the scope and utility of the product or the service we offer. People have heard about all these tools, like since I've been here, this new CRM that just came out, this new CMS. But what are they for? Why they cost so much to build? Why do I need it? These are the issues that we every day over and over. And these inquiries do not come only from the average Joe, but from business leaders, politicians, artists, family members, bankers, teachers. For the most part, they do not know what the products are for and how they will impact them, impact their businesses, their lives, or their communities. For most of them, technology is just too complicated or just too expensive. Meanwhile, the entire African landscape is profoundly changing, pushed by a rapid growth or rapid adoption of new technology, but with little understanding. My point is, we talk about Coders4Africa. My point is, we can build our applications, or you can build your applications, invent, create, develop. But also, we need to educate masses and share information and knowledge. So the internet, technology, and its power are no longer only for professionals, but for everyone. And that huge task does not belong to the states, nor to the schools or the Western corporation, unless we want to leave the profit and benefit exclusively to them. It belongs to us as entrepreneurs and visionaries of this new century. Because by using the power of technology and social media, education, news programming, and mass media outlets, we can start a real trend of educated African masses, business leaders, government, general consumers, and translators to jump on the train. And I believe, I'm finishing, it makes sense for organizations such as such as Coders4Africa, with such a name, Coders4Africa, to be in the forefront of the technological revolution in Africa, in the continent. And to finish, these are the questions and debates I always ask and look for in my radio show and in my Facebook page. Are we, us as Africa, using science and information technology to first educate our people, emancipate them from economic and financial dependence that make their living easier and more comfortable? What innovations developed by African developers who have been to the same schools as the US, Asian, or European developers who are today transforming their own communities can brag about? What is their contribution? What is our contribution? Are African developers using their creativity, talent, and ingenuity in the construction of the continent? Or are they doing it somewhere else, for someone else? That's a quick $1 million question for me, for you guys to answer. Thank you very much to all, and God bless.
Thank you so much for that. Next, we have our second remote presenter, and I'm happy to introduce her for mainly one reason. She's our first female presenter, besides myself. So next is Tayo Akinyemi, and she's calling in from Chicago. So let's. I'm going to introduce her while we do that. All right. So Tayo Akinyemi is a entrepreneurship enthusiast who has worked with in the U.S., Africa, and Latin America. She began her career at an NGO dedicated to advancing in corporate business. Since then, she has focused with varying degrees of success on understanding how businesses are built and sustained. From developing a community-inclusive business strategy for a greenfield sugarcane ethanol venture in Mozambique to executing the U.S. entry strategy for a digital marketing company in Brazil, Tayo has explored the social impact of commercial business. Tayo also has an MBA from Cornell University and a BA from Princeton University. Yes. That's somebody, that's not Tayo. Who are you? Oh no, we're not. This is not us at all.
She's from Chicago.
There you go. I think it's coming. There you go. Hey. So everyone, welcome Tayo Akinyemi.
Okay. Do I just start off answering the questions? Is that how we're doing it? Okay. Well, hello everyone. That's a big room, actually. Hello everyone. My name is Tayo Akinyemi. I'm originally from Chicago. I'm currently managing a Pan-African network of tech innovation hubs called AfriLabs. AfriLabs currently has 30 hubs in 15 countries. So in terms of what I do, really I'm a professional cat herder. So my job is really to find mechanisms for all of these independent organizations, tech hubs, to share knowledge and collaborate, and to create incentives for them to do so. In terms of technology I'm working on or excited about, well, AfriLabs is actually building in collaboration with a company called Data, DAA, a startup research platform that's meant to put due diligence information in context, if you will. So the idea that we want to provide vetted critical information to investors who want to identify compelling opportunities in Africa. And when I mean in context, I mean in terms of sector, country, a variety of macroeconomic indicators, etc. I don't have any tech crutches at the moment, but I am in the market for mobile phones. So I'm trying to decide whether to go with like a mid-range Android or wait for the next Samsung or iPhone to drop. In terms of the relevance of my work to Africa, basically there's an economic opportunity to be had for entrepreneurs and ICT businesses to compete on the global market. To compete in the global marketplace focused on tech innovation and entrepreneurship. So AfriLabs is investing in these tech hubs to serve as infrastructure, so providing space, power, internet, and access to really talented people to provide a platform for these local businesses and innovations to get off the ground. I think the last question is, if you drop me somewhere, what would my impact be? Somewhere in Africa, where would my impact be? To be frank, I think I'd be pretty useless. And I think about it in terms of from my perspective, I think it would take me some time to, have a look around, understand the landscape, figure out where the gaps and needs are, and if in fact I had something to offer. If so, great. If not, I probably would sort of acknowledge that, pack it up, and identify the next opportunity.
Thank you, Tayo. Given that we're on a roll with the women thing, we're just going to go to the next female, and she's awesome. Just wait and see. So our next presenter is Olubunmi Odumade. She's Nexercise's VP of Engineering and recently won a $25,000 award for her business at the Chevron Power Stage event at the Essence Festival. Round of applause for that. That means she's rich. You too. Bumi is a proven leader with over 16 years of industry experience delivering highly visible, large-scale technology solutions, usually in the government sector. She has been instrumental in ensuring the quality and timely delivery of Nexercise applications. Bumi holds a Master's of Business Administration from the Wharton School, and she also has a BS in Mechanical Engineering and an MS in Computer Science. Wow. Round of applause.
Thank you very much. Thank you also to Coders4Africa for organizing this event. It's a Saturday, but see how you were able to get us all to come here. That's wonderful. So, as she said, my name is Bumi Odumade, and I'm one of the co-founders of Nexercise. And I'll tell you a little bit about that shortly. But first of all, to go a little bit more into my background, I actually had elementary school in the US, high school in Nigeria, and I've been back here since college. So I've lived on both continents. And when my bachelor's is mechanical engineering, the funny thing is my parents actually wanted me to get a degree in accounting, but even at a young age, I was very interested in technology. So I insisted on getting something that was technical. And one of the classes I had to take in that degree was in computer science. Thinking that I liked it, but I hated it. You forget one semicolon and everything goes haywire. You see, people can relate. So, but by the end of that semester, that hatred became more of a curiosity. I wanted to understand how to make computers work, what made them do what they did, and for me to make them do what I wanted them to do. And that's why I went and got a master's in computer science. So since then, I've pretty much been working in technology, at companies such as Accenture. And on the clients, you probably use some of my software, but I won't mention what they are right now. So then a few years ago, I decided to get the MBA from Wharton. That's where I met my co-founders for an exercise. At the time, it was an executive MBA, so I lived here in the DC metro area, still worked at Accenture, and went to Philadelphia every other weekend for classes and other things. So it was very busy. And because it was busy, it was fitness to have. Fitness is only about being the right weight. It's about making sure your body is in the peak condition, making sure you're taking care of yourself. In my case, when I don't exercise, I get more heavy. I see this, I catch my classmates speak about being sick all the time. That's not what I want to be known for. So my co-founders and I discussed ways to make fitness into something that was a little more engaging, something that you would stick to even as you got busier. We worked on a few different ideas in business school, but they didn't really work out. And one of the important things is, somebody earlier talked about pivoting. It is important to understand when your initial ideas aren't working out. After business school is when we came up with the idea that we have now for an exercise. Something that can make fitness into a game that gives you levels and medals and things to aspire to, something that you want to do. So it's available in iTunes and Google Play. We've had millions of downloads. As we mentioned, I won a competition at the Essence Music Festival last month. And we're really growing in a competitive market in a tough industry. Everybody wants to play games. Nobody wants to exercise. And yet, we're still at it. We're growing. We're fundraising. We plan to take this even further. And we're international. We have users in various parts of Africa. And I've had friends in Nigeria come talk to me about how to take an exercise into their workplaces because they can see the value that it would have there. So as you can probably tell, technology is one of my passions. Cell phones these days, they're small and they do more than computers that were many times their size even a few years ago. And then you have the smartwatches. This isn't on my wrist, I have such power to connect with things that it would have taken a big computer to do even 5 years ago. So one of my other passions is, I'm glad I wasn't the only female speaker today, but females in technology is still a small percentage. I want to do my part to change that percentage. I wanted so that when I go to a tech conference, I'm not the only woman or one of. Do we have any more? One more. So, I recently was informed about an all-female developers group in Nigeria. It was announced at Google I/O a few months ago. So the next time I go to Nigeria, I want to find that group and find a way to be involved because we do need more technologists, both male and female, but especially female. So I'm around all afternoon. I think I'm on one of the panels later. So thank you for your time.
That was awesome. All right, so a little bit of housekeeping. Again, I know I said lunch was going to be at a certain time. It's just running a little late because it's African food and it's homemade. But it has nothing to do with Africa time. I don't want to hear that. No such thing. It's just traffic and, not good. But in the meantime, we're just going to get more presenters out here. The next person is as founder and executive director of Etri Labs, Sinam Bertan draws on a diverse combination of expertise and experiences. Prior to Etri Labs, Sinam served as a high school teacher, project director, and educational technology researcher / consultant. With an education in law, political science, international development, and instructional technology, Sinam has a unique gift for understanding the challenges related to entrepreneurship and innovation in developing countries. He speaks English, French, and Spanish fluently. Show off. In addition to Etri Labs, Sinam is also co-founder of TechExo, a startup accelerator and part owner of several technology startups in Africa. Welcome, Senam Bennett.
Hi everyone. I was scheduled to speak after lunch, and I skipped breakfast. And in addition to that, I have a backpack right now, so just bear with me. But this is nothing compared to what I endured when I first went to Africa. And I will let you know. I first to the US in 1990. So I went to school here, and my goal was always to go back. I wanted to be involved in politics. Actually, that's why all my education choices, law, political science, and economics. So I went back in 1996. I started a company, and was kind of it was based on the Peace Corps, but it was just for Africans, for Beninese, because it was at the time of structural adjustment. It was so big in our lives, but it's like today we forgot about it. Because of structural adjustment, the government froze all hiring, and I had a lot of friends who were graduates of the medical school, and what they were doing was they were opening little clinics here and there, not really doing anything. All inclusive that you learn doing a master's in international development. And it started pretty well because we had banks and organizations trying to help us do the right thing. After things went south, just because was engaged, community development. The person selected was not the person that the dean of the School of Medicine and the Minister of Health wanted. Short story, I came back to the US. So I came back to the US, and I went to teaching because I don't really like to work for someone. That's just something that's just how I am. I went back to teaching. I went to teaching, and I really loved it. I loved it. The kids loved me. I was Mr. B. And while I was teaching, I was able to connect two of my passions, teaching and technology. So it was the time where, the technology was kind of starting to get into the classroom. So at the time, I was using stupid things like PowerPoint instead of using, what do they call it? That thing that you set on the table and then you transparency. Yeah, that thing. It was like what? A long time ago. But I was doing, I guess, something well because all the kids were interested in my class. So the principal wanted me to help other teachers work with technology. And then I went to school. I got another master's in instructional technology. Then I was in charge of the district, the school district, helping teachers teach with technology and that kind of stuff. So it was to be honest with you, so and then I went back. I started this organization called ETRI, stands for Educational Technology and Research International. And my initial goal was to help governments, ministries of education, use ICT in technology. Now, ICT in technology doesn't mean computers in the classroom. Even today, it doesn't mean computer in the classroom. In Africa, for example, ICT technology, even if you don't have a single computer in the classroom, but if you can manage the data, if you can manage technology, education with technology, understand what's going on, how many employees you have, what are the best practices, and what to use to get the best resulting technology, I think you would have done something good. So I was interested in education management service and information service. So I work with 2 governments, 3, and some organizations working with governments. And I was very disappointed. And this is why I decided not to. A tech hub in Cotonou, Benin, where I am from, and I wanted to do the same, some of the things that I was asking government to do. I have a little bit of savings at the time. Okay, so anyway, so I started ETRI Labs. ETRI Labs is actually a tech hub. People talk about pivots. We started in 2010. I think we pivot every week because we first started as an organization trying to get resources from co-working, training, and all that kind of stuff. Then we realized we really didn't have the base for that, or the money that we were getting was too little to sustain what we were trying to do. So we find other ways. I'm not going to bore you with that. We find other ways to accomplish that. And I think I'm on the panel later. I can answer some of these questions. I really love working with the youth of Africa. You know, there's the cliche, you know, the youth is the future. But in Africa, there is no future without the youth. I mean, it's just simple. The developers work with Africa, accelerate other startups. My co-founder is 22 years old. I respect him. I trust him. I follow his guidance, his insight, and he never left Benin. But when this guy talks to you, you see that he gets not the technology, I mean, because he's very good at it, but his critical thinking blows your mind. He's 22. Okay? So, I'm just going to tell you that that is where my bet is. And if you're not betting on the youth of Africa, you are not betting. Thank you very much.
Presentation. So I have great news, and then also have good news. So I'll tell you the good news first. The good news is we have one more presenter, but the greater news, the greatest news is that the lunch is here and we're setting up. So while Chika Mandy is presenting, you can smell the food in your other place and you know the food is coming. And he promised that it won't take long. But don't be nervous, it's okay. We'll not attack you because you're taking our time to finish eating. All right, so Chika Mandy is a co-founder of TipHub, an organization that supports African ideas that have the potential to provide scalable social impact through the use of emerging technologies. It sits at an intersection of business, social good, and technology. His practical experience is focused on customer-centric design and building data analysis you can do well by doing good, and utilities the odds. Welcome, Chico Marion.
Yeah, I don't know how I got this position, but vice person before everyone gets so I only have about 5 minutes. I'm going to try to stick to that really. So the way that my presentation is focused, I'm not going to try to tell you everything. I'm just going to try to give you a little insight to what's going on. So who is Chika? I'm Nigerian. I broke my first computer at the age of, with an idea, at the age of 6. I stuck bologna in the floppy drive. It's a floppy drive. If you want this floppy. I really come from a background, the scientific method. My dad was a chemist. My mother was a biologist at heart. Went into nursing. So we're very science, very method-driven family in a sense. It's drilled into our heads. Always ask questions and always test your explanation. So that's a little insight to me. What do I do? So I'm a co-founder for TipHub. TipHub, in a sense, is kind of at the intersection of what we're talking about, right? All the things we're talking about, all the great things that are going on in Africa right now, right? We have the emergence of great technology. We have the emergence of wonderful ideas, and now it's about continuing to support the ecosystem of bringing people that they have different perspectives on the way things work, providing funding. Providing mentorship for people that, from people that have actually done some of the ideas, looked at some of the ideas that we're thinking about, that younger people or more the entrepreneurs are looking at, and bringing all of those things together to build scalable businesses that also provide large impact. And I'll get more into that during the panel, but another thing, what I do at heart is I build great products. I've done that since I was 12, building random games, taking on random projects, developing in college, and now I'm a product guy. I do product management on the side, just for fun. But it's great to, my methodology is very focused on figuring out who my customer is and building for that segment, and hoping and just iterating lean startup methodology. Product management. I'll get to that. But that's what I'm into. That's what I do. What am I excited about? I am excited about analytics. I love analytics because, like I said earlier, it's like forecasting. You can never be wrong. And it's wonderful. As long as you establish the environment to capture actions in your product and actions, it's not just focused on products, right? Analytics could be working with a company in February focused on education analytics in Ghana. And analytics has this transformative ability to really decrease the barrier to entry for a lot of companies, especially with the amount of products out there that can support analytic decision making. So I love data analytics in general. It's huge, vast industry in the United States, but slowly gaining traction on the continent. I'm really excited about that. So why am I doing all of this? Why am I here now? We're focused on a lot of people have great ideas. Raise your hand if you have an idea right now that you think will make a difference. Okay. How many of you have executed on that idea? Oh, okay. Oh, you guys are a bunch of dudes. I should ask that question. Yeah. But no, it's really focused. It's really focused on empowering people so they get like you to bring the resources together to help them make their ideas become viable, scalable businesses, and that's what I'm about. That's what TipHub is about. And lastly, my Africa 20 years from now is not about Robin Thicke, but it's about it's about this idea of I want to continue to push the boundaries on what we consider development and then building businesses. I think right now we're at a place in the conversation of Africa and aid, Africa and Africa is on the rise, and there's still a little tension between, okay, well, can we develop through business, through the private sector? And I believe that this is true. And I think as we continue along within the next 20 years, we're going to see an environment that allows businesses to kind of to work on developing not just the environment, but also developing their customer into a better customer that will eventually bring revenue into the larger companies and larger economies that we're going to see in the next 20 years. So thank you, and last but not least, follow Tip Hub Africa on Twitter. We're going to have a lot of conversation going on after this event, and also a lot of other announcements will be made afterward. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Chica. So, there's plenty of food, as you can smell, and we're setting up. But if you're the hungry or the hungriest, we can start lining up this way. And yeah, welcome. Let's enjoy that, and we'll be back around 2:15. Perfect. Yes.
Hello?
What about sir. So we're going to talk about that. Oh, really? We'll take a quick break. Lunchtime has been seen. See you in half an hour.